I mean, I'd rather live with Mom than with you. It was a quiet Friday night, just as the clock struck midnight. My husband, James, was engrossed in an online game in the living room while I was sitting at the dining table, working on some tasks I'd brought home. When James casually mentioned living separately, as if he were discussing the weather, I was stunned. Why? I asked, needing to understand his reasoning, especially since our marriage had been struggling lately. My name is Madison, I reminded myself. It was midnight on my 35th birthday, and I was in the middle of fertility treatments. James's sudden announcement felt like a bombshell, a cruel, unexpected birthday gift that left me completely speechless. Without taking his eyes off the game, James said, "You're 35 now, right? Even if you do get pregnant, it would be a high-risk pregnancy. I've given up on having kids with you. That's why I'm moving in with my mom." What? That doesn't make any sense. I shot back, baffled by the disconnect between giving up on children and his decision to live with his mother. James and I had gotten married the year before last. We initially planned to enjoy some time as newlyweds, but James was eager to start a family. As the youngest of 3 brothers, with each of his older brothers already married and having 3 kids each, James was often told by them that it's best to have children while you're young and energetic. Encouraged by this advice, we laughed it off and enthusiastically tried to start our own family, but a year passed without any success. At one point, James snapped, "You need to get this checked out." "Check what?" I asked, confused. "Find out why we're not having kids. There must be something wrong with you," he shouted. I was infuriated by his assumption, but I still went to see a gynecologist, just to be sure. To my dismay, the test revealed that I indeed had issues making conception difficult. The diagnosis was a shock. I had no symptoms and it was completely unexpected. Dr. Thompson explained, "It's challenging, but not impossible for you to conceive naturally." However, sharing this news with James felt overwhelming. That evening, I tried to explain the situation calmly over dinner. James's reaction was triumphant, as if he had been proven right. "I knew it was you," he said with a smug tone. "But I can still get pregnant," I stammered, trying to defend myself. James glared at me with a cold expression. "No, it hasn't happened yet, so it's not going to," he declared, jumping to conclusions. I felt my anger rise. "For all we know, you could be the one with the problem," I retorted, raising my voice. James shouted back, "Madison, the results are clear, yet you still try to blame me. Unbelievable." In a fit of rage, he slammed his hands on the table, causing me to flinch. "You're just a failure who can't have kids," he spat before storming off to the bedroom. James's harsh words left me in tears as I cleaned up the dishes alone. I told myself that he was just shocked and lashed out in the heat of the moment. If we could just have the child, I believed we could be a happy couple again. Determined to win back his heart, I started going to the gynecologist regularly and learning more about our situation. My anxiety grew, and even on the days most likely for conception, we had no success. I became obsessed with the idea of getting pregnant. One morning, I cautiously suggested, "Let's try tonight, please." He responded with disdain, "Isn't it embarrassing to bring up such a topic first thing in the morning?" I blushed, feeling awkward. Though it felt uncomfortable, such discussions should be natural between spouses. Trying to keep my tone gentle, I continued, "You want children too, right?" But James coldly replied, "Honestly, I don't even want kids. They're too expensive. I only considered it because my brother said a man isn't truly an adult until he has a wife and kids. But now, with this excuse from you, I couldn't care less." From then on, whenever I tried to initiate anything, James would refuse, claiming he was too busy or too tired. I was also exhausted from work, and the repeated rejections were a blow to my pride. Lately, James had become absorbed in online gaming, staying up late into the night. As a result, we hardly talked, let alone had any intimacy. It felt like James had lost interest not only in having children but in me as well. Despite everything, I continued to visit the gynecologist. I was taken aback by the sheer number of couples at the fertility clinic. The place was always bustling, and even with an appointment, a 2 to 3 hour wait was common. It was somewhat comforting to see so many couples facing the same struggles, all doing their best. Occasionally, I'd see couples leaving the doctor's office with tears of joy streaming down their faces. The wives, with still flat bellies, would gently touch their stomachs while their husbands walked closely beside them. I envied them deeply. I wanted a child too, hoping it would restore James's love and bring me happiness. I clung to the fragile hope that having a child would mend things, but I hit a roadblock when I learned that advancing to further treatments would require James to undergo tests. It might now be impossible. The walk back from the clinic always left me feeling desolate and on the verge of tears. As I stepped onto the main street, I noticed an elderly woman in flamboyant attire catching my eye. Her thick makeup and brightly colored dress were almost overwhelming. Though I couldn't recall knowing anyone like her, she had an oddly familiar presence that momentarily distracted me from my tears. Could that be my mother-in-law? I wondered, staring in disbelief. Even though we live in the same city, we rarely cross paths, so she looked completely different from what I remembered. But the distinctive mole on her cheek was unmistakable. My mother-in-law was supposed to be a modestly dressed, typical grandmother, so her radical change in appearance was shocking. I quickly blended into the crowd, trying to avoid her notice. The truth is, my mother-in-law is quite a character, indulgent with herself yet harshly critical of others. She's notorious for hurling insults that most would find shocking. She showers her youngest son, James, with favoritism, treating her other children merely as financial resources. Even her other sons detest her. When my father-in-law was dying of cancer last year, there was talk of her moving in with one of her sons, but both the eldest and the second son firmly refused. We expected the request might come our way, but she announced she would live alone while she was still healthy, possibly out of spite or simply due to her nature. After my father-in-law's passing, she made a scene, accusing everyone of being ungrateful for stealing an old woman's retirement money and took all his inheritance without sharing it. Despite attempts by my brothers-in-law and James to divide it legally, she refused to budge, and no one could prevail against her. She told me, "I have no interest in getting along with you, so don't come to my house," she said. Despite her usual clashes with my sisters-in-law, this interaction was relatively peaceful. She didn't notice me that day and soon disappeared into a store. Her presence in that shop was so unlike the mother-in-law, I knew that I found myself staring at the store's sign in disbelief. That night, I considered telling James about his mother's unusual behavior, but decided against it. She was an adult, and with my father-in-law gone, she was on her own. It wasn't my place to comment on her personal choices. After that, I saw her a few more times but chose to ignore it. Months went by, and as my birthday approached, James brought up the idea of moving out. I asked him, "Is there someone else you're interested in?" I wondered if his talk about his mother was just an excuse and if he was planning to remarry. But given that he spent most of his days gaming at home, it didn't seem like he was seeing anyone. I almost laughed at my own cold reasoning. James replied, "Well, there's a girl in my gaming group I kind of like, but it's just online. For all I know, she could be a guy pretending to be a girl." His response only made the situation seem more absurd. If he could make rational judgments about his online interests, why was he suddenly talking about moving out? It made no sense to me. James simply repeated, "I just want to live with my mom more than I want to live with you." I couldn't understand why James would prefer living with his mother instead of staying with me. "So, have you come to dislike me and lost your love for me?" I asked, my heart itching just to voice the question. It felt as though he no longer needed me, a wife who couldn't bear children. I braced myself for his response, trying to hold back my sadness. "Not really." "What?" James's nonchalant reply caught me off guard. "Like I said before, I don't care about having kids anymore. What we need is a different financial strategy." "Financial strategy?" I repeated, puzzled by his unexpected words. James nodded with a calm demeanor. "Yeah, it's about my mom's inheritance," he said, his tone serious. I was confused, struggling to see the connection. My brothers are greedy. They'll use any excuse, like having more kids, to claim a larger share of mom's inheritance. I won't let that happen. I was stunned by his blatant admission but kept my thoughts to myself. "But your mother is in great health. Isn't it premature to be discussing inheritance?" "That's exactly the point. She dislikes you but favors me. Living with her now could give me an advantage in the inheritance. Plus, there's a substantial fortune my dad left her. We could live comfortably without working hard. We don't have children to look after us in our old age, so we'll need the money," James explained with a dismissive tone, but I was horrified by the implications. "So, you wanted children because you needed them to care for you in your old age. And now that's not an option. You're aiming for a bigger share of your mother's inheritance." I hoped my assumption was wrong as I sought confirmation from James, but his response confirmed my worst fears. "Exactly. Children are supposed to look after their parents. By living with my mom now, I might even secure the entire inheritance, James said, showing his strong allegiance to his mother and lack of intention to be fair. I remained silent, feeling the depth of his familial ties. James continued, "When mom passes away, I'll move back in with you. You may not be able to have kids, but you're good at housework and bringing a decent salary. You're useful as a housekeeper." "Understood. Let's get a divorce," I blurted out, my frustration overriding James's words. Who would agree to such terms? To live separately and then reunite later was an insult. I knew James, the pampered youngest son, had his flaws, but this selfish scheme was beyond forgiveness. I realized that staying with him would never bring me happiness, and at that moment, my love for James completely vanished. "Let's get a lawyer to divide our assets and finalize the divorce." Divorce? I never mentioned anything about divorcing. Just living separately is fine. Hiring a lawyer seems excessive, James said, suddenly flustered but seeming to reconsider. "No, you'll be better off as a single man too. I won't be satisfied unless everything is divided fairly and legally. Plus, having a third party involved will prevent any lingering issues, right?" James smirked. "Maybe you're right. If I get a large portion of mom's inheritance, I'll be set for the future and can remarry. Just don't regret this." "Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Make sure you have no regrets," I replied. The next day, I contacted a lawyer recommended by a divorced friend and arranged a consultation. I also informed the landlord that only James would be moving out and organized a moving company. While making these arrangements, I overheard James on the phone with his mother saying, "I want to live with you and take care of you." I was astonished that he had proposed moving out before even discussing it with her. According to James, his mother was excited about the arrangement and had a few requests. As a result, the divorce preparations proceeded surprisingly smoothly. Originally, the assets were to be split evenly, but my skilled lawyer negotiated a better deal for me, securing 70% of the assets, including compensation. Given James's selfish reasons for our divorce, I decided not to hold back and claimed what I was entitled to. 3 days after our divorce was finalized, James returned to his family home. I was relaxing in my apartment when my phone rang. It was James and his voice was frantic. "Help me please, let's get married again. There's no inheritance. Mom spent it all on strippers. She's broke and deep in debt, and even the house is mortgaged." "Well, that's unfortunate. Your mom was really into those strip clubs," I said, struggling to suppress a chuckle. Just days earlier, I had seen my former mother-in-law heading into a strip club. Curious, I had checked the price list and was shocked by the figures. She had been frequenting the place for some time, clearly spending a fortune. With James becoming obsessed with online gaming and neglecting visits, she had fallen for a stripper and squandered not only my father-in-law's inheritance but also her own retirement savings, accumulating significant debt in the process. "Why didn't you tell me if you knew?" James demanded. "I don't criticize personal hobbies. I never stopped you from gaming, did I?" I shot back. James hesitated, then tried to shift the topic. "She's asking me to take out loans in my name, but that's not feasible. Could you give me the money from our property division? If we get back together, it's both of our money, right?" "Absolutely not." "Why not? You still care about me, don't you? Your husband is in trouble here." "I did love you when we were married, but when you suggested moving out, any affection I have for you vanished completely, especially now when it's clear you're only after money. There's no chance we're getting back together." "But my mom's demanding that I give her all my salary. She says it's only natural for children to support their parents. She was always so kind to me alone." James whined pathetically, but his and his mother's entitlement, that they should come first and everyone else should cater to them, was something I had no desire to support. "We're divorced now. We're strangers. Your family's problems are yours to deal with," I replied firmly before hanging up and blocking his number. I called my former sisters-in-law next. Although it had only been 3 days since the divorce, the urgency of the situation made it clear that waiting wasn't an option. I filled them in on the recent developments about my former mother-in-law and the details of the divorce. They expressed their sympathy and promised to deal with James. Soon after, my former brothers-in-law stormed into the family home, creating quite a scene. I heard about the commotion from one of my former sisters-in-law. After James' call, I decided to change the locks on my apartment for safety and made up my mind to move out. It felt like a complete break from the past. While searching for a new place, I discovered that the family home was up for sale. Though I could have inquired about James and his mother, I chose to focus on moving forward. I was ready to leave the past behind and start fresh. I'm now considering a pet-friendly apartment where I can enjoy a leisurely life with a cute cat.
You think I married you for love? Don't kid yourself, Evelyn. You're just a stepping stone. The words hung in the air, sharp and cold. I stood there, frozen, my hand still gripping the spatula I'd been using to make breakfast. Grayson's eyes, once warm and inviting, now gleamed with a cruel satisfaction. What? I managed to choke out. He laughed, a sound that used to make my heart flutter, but now sent chills down my spine. Oh, come on. You can't be that naive. Did you really think someone like me would settle for someone like you without an agenda? My name is Evelyn, and this is the moment my fairy tale shattered. I set the spatula down, my movements slow and deliberate. Someone like you? And what exactly is that supposed to mean? Grayson leaned against the kitchen counter, his perfectly pressed suit a stark contrast to my flour-dusted apron. Ambitious. Destined for greatness. Your family's little construction business was just the first rung on the ladder. The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the stove, steadying myself. Our marriage. It was all a lie. Not all of it, he said, his tone almost bored. The sex was good. And you did make a convincing trophy wife at company events. Rage bubbled up inside me, hot and sudden. I grabbed the nearest object, a ceramic mug, and hurled it at his head. He ducked, and it shattered against the wall behind him. Get out! I screamed. Get the hell out of my house. Grayson's eyes widened, a flicker of genuine surprise crossing his face. Your house? I think you're forgetting who pays the bills around here, sweetheart. I advanced on him, my voice low and dangerous. My family's company built this house. My sweat and blood are in these walls. Now get out before I show you exactly what a construction worker's daughter is capable of. He held up his hands in mock surrender, that infuriating smirk still playing on his lips. All right. I'm going. But this isn't over, Evelyn. You do well to remember that. The front door slammed, and I collapsed onto the kitchen floor, my mind reeling. How had I been so blind? The whirlwind romance, the lavish proposal, the dream wedding, it had all seemed too good to be true. Because it was. I don't know how long I sat there, surrounded by shards of broken ceramic and the ruins of my marriage. Eventually, I pulled myself up and reached for my phone. With shaking fingers, I dialed the one person I knew I could always count on. Mom, my voice cracked. I need you. An hour later, I was sitting in my parents' cozy living room, a mug of tea warming my hands. My mother, Rose, sat beside me, her arm around my shoulders. My father, Oliver, paced by the fireplace, his face a storm of concern and anger. I'll kill him, Oliver growled. I'll tear that smug bastard limb from limb. Dad, please, I said wearily. Violence isn't the answer. Rose squeezed my shoulder. Your father's just upset, honey. We both are. To think that Grayson could be so manipulative, deceitful, a complete and utter asshole. I supplied. Despite everything, a small smile tugged at my mother's lips. I was going to say misguided, but your words work too. Oliver stopped pacing and sat down across from us. Evelyn, sweetheart, I know you're hurting, but we need to think practically. What did he mean about using our business? I shook my head. I don't know. He always acted like the company was beneath him. Said it was just a quaint family business that would never amount to much. Rose and Oliver exchanged a look. Honey, my mother said gently, there's something we need to tell you about the company. For the next hour, my parents laid out the truth about Montgomery Construction. It wasn't just a small family business. It was a rapidly growing enterprise with contracts all over the state. They had been protecting me, they said, wanting me to have a normal life without the pressure of a family legacy. But why didn't you tell me? I asked, feeling betrayed, all over again. Oliver leaned forward, his eyes intense. We were going to, sweetheart. We had a whole plan to bring you into the fold gradually. But then you met Grayson, and everything happened so fast. We thought we had time, Rose added softly. We never imagined he would. Use me as a pawn in his sick game? I finished bitterly. The room fell silent. I stared into my now cold tea, my mind racing. Grayson had seen the potential in my family's company when I couldn't. He had played me, played all of us, for his own gain. Suddenly, I stood up, a new fire burning in my chest. I want in, I declared. I want to learn everything about the business. And then, I paused, my voice hardening. Then I'm going to use every resource at my disposal to make Grayson rue the day he ever thought he could use me as a stepping stone. My parents exchanged another look, this one filled with a mixture of pride and concern. Evelyn, my father said slowly, revenge isn't the answer. It won't heal your heart. I met his gaze, my jaw set. Maybe not, but it'll be a damn good start. I woke up the next morning on my parents' couch, my head pounding and eyes puffy from a night of tears and rage. The smell of coffee wafted from the kitchen, and I stumbled in to find my mother already dressed for work. Morning, sweetheart, Rose said, sliding a mug across the counter. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck, I mumbled, taking a grateful sip. Is Dad at the office already? She nodded. He wanted to get an early start. We have a lot to catch you up on. The events of yesterday came flooding back. Grayson's betrayal, the revelation about our family business. I set the mug down with a clatter. Mom, I meant what I said last night. I want in. I need to know everything. Rose's eyes softened. I know, honey, and we're going to tell you. But first, we need to deal with the more immediate problem. Grayson, I spat. Exactly. Have you checked your phone? I realized I'd left it off since yesterday. Turning it on, I was bombarded with notifications, missed calls, texts, voicemails. All from Grayson. He's trying to backpedal, I said, scrolling through the messages. Baby, I'm sorry. We need to talk. It wasn't what you think. Typical. Rose's face hardened. Don't fall for it, Evelyn. Men like that, they'll say anything to keep their hooks in you. I deleted the messages without responding. Don't worry. I'm done with his lies. We finished our coffee and headed to Montgomery Construction's main office. I'd been here before, of course, but always as a visitor. Now, as we walked through the bustling corridors, I saw it with new eyes. Dad was waiting in the conference room, along with a man I didn't recognize. Evelyn, this is Jack Reeves, our head of legal. Oliver introduced us. He's here to help us navigate the situation. I shook Jack's hand, noting his firm grip and kind eyes. Nice to meet you, Evelyn, he said. I'm sorry it's under these circumstances. We all sat down, and for the next 2 hours, my parents and Jack laid out the full scope of Montgomery Construction. I learned about our major projects, our financial standings, and the complex web of contracts and partnerships that made up our business empire. So, I said, my head spinning, we're not just some quaint family business. We're a major player in the industry. Oliver nodded. We've worked hard to build this company, Evelyn, and we've always planned for you to take over someday. We wanted to protect you from the pressure. I felt a pang of frustration. I appreciate that, Dad, but I'm not a child. I could have handled it. You're right, Rose said softly. We should have trusted you more. But now, we need to focus on protecting you and the company from Grayson. Jack cleared his throat. Mrs. Hartman, I've reviewed your prenuptial agreement. The good news is it's ironclad. Grayson has no claim on your personal assets or your shares in the company. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Thank God for small mercies. However, Jack continued, there is the matter of your joint accounts and the house. We'll need to move quickly to secure those assets before Grayson can access them. My father leaned forward. Evelyn, we can handle all of this for you. You don't have to. No. I cut him off. I need to do this myself. I got myself into this mess, and I'm going to get myself out. Rose reached over and squeezed my hand. You're not alone, sweetheart. We're here for whatever you need. I squeezed back, grateful for their support. Thank you. All of you. Now, where do we start? Jack pulled out a folder. First things first, we need to freeze your joint accounts. Then we'll start the process of dividing assets. It won't be easy, Evelyn. Grayson's likely to fight this every step of the way. Let him, I said, a steely resolve settling over me. I'm done being his stepping stone. It's time he learned what happens when you mess with a Montgomery. We spent the rest of the day strategizing. By the time we finished, I had a clear plan of action. I would move back home temporarily, freeze our accounts, and file for divorce. It wasn't going to be pretty, but I was ready for the fight. As we were wrapping up, my phone buzzed. A text from Grayson. We need to talk. I'm coming over tonight. I showed it to my parents. He doesn't know I'm not at the house, I said. Oliver's face darkened. I'll go over there, and… No, Dad, I interrupted. I need to face him myself. It's time I stood up to him once and for all. Rose looked worried. Are you sure, honey? You don't have to do this alone. I stood up, feeling stronger than I had in months. I'm sure. Grayson thinks he can manipulate me, use me for his own gain. It's time he learned just how wrong he is. As I left the office, I felt a mix of fear and determination. The old Evelyn might have crumbled in the face of Grayson's charm and lies, but that Evelyn was gone. In her place stood a woman ready to reclaim her life, her dignity, and her future. Grayson Hartman was about to learn that he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. I stood in the kitchen of my soon-to-be former home, my hands gripping the counter as I waited for Grayson to arrive. The house felt different now, tainted by the knowledge of his betrayal. Every happy memory we'd shared here now seemed like a cruel joke. The doorbell rang, and I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I opened the door to find Grayson standing there, his usual polished appearance slightly disheveled. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I thought I'd married. Evelyn, he said, his voice soft. Thank God. I've been trying to reach you. I stepped aside, letting him in without a word. He moved past me, his expensive cologne filling the air. Look, Grayson started, running a hand through his hair. What I said yesterday, I didn't mean it. I was angry, frustrated. You know how I get when work is stressful. I crossed my arms, my voice steady. And what about Maya? Was she just stress relief too? His eyes widened for a fraction of a second before he composed himself. Maya? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Grayson. Not anymore. Before he could respond, the doorbell rang again. Confusion crossed Grayson's face as I moved to answer it. Standing on the porch was Lydia Hartman, her perfectly coiffed hair and designer outfit a stark contrast to the tension in the air. Mother? Grayson said, surprise evident in his voice. What are you doing here? Lydia swept into the house, her eyes darting between us. I came to see how you two were doing. I've been so worried. I bit back a bitter laugh. Worried about her son's plan falling apart. More like. Evelyn, dear, Lydia said, her voice dripping with false concern. Grayson told me about your disagreement. I'm sure it's all just a misunderstanding. I met her gaze, refusing to be cowed. There's no misunderstanding, Lydia. Your son made his intentions quite clear. Lydia's eyes narrowed. Now, let's not be hasty. Every marriage has its rough patches. I'm sure if you just tried a little harder. That's enough, Mother, Grayson interrupted, looking uncomfortable. I felt a surge of anger. Tried harder? I gave everything to this marriage. I supported Grayson's career, played the perfect wife at his work events, put my own dreams on hold. And for what? To be used as a stepping stone? Lydia's mask of concern slipped for a moment, revealing a flash of contempt. Well, dear, you can hardly blame Grayson for wanting more. After all, you're not exactly from our circle. The room fell silent. Grayson looked mortified, but I noticed he didn't jump to my defense. I took a deep breath, channeling all the strength I'd found in the past 2 days. You're right, Lydia. I'm not from your circle. I come from a family that values hard work, honesty, and loyalty, the qualities that seem to be in short supply in the Hartman household. Lydia gasped, affronted. How dare you? No. I cut her off. How dare you come into my home and try to manipulate me? I see through you both now. Grayson married me for my family's company, and you went along with it because you thought you could control me. Grayson stepped forward, his charm offensive in full swing. Evelyn, baby, that's not true. I love you. We can work this out. I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Save it, Grayson. I'm done with your lies. I've already frozen our joint accounts and contacted a lawyer. This marriage is over. The color drained from Grayson's face. You what? You can't do that. I can, and I have, I said, my voice steady. You underestimated me, Grayson. You thought I was just some naive girl you could use and discard. But I'm a Montgomery, and we don't break that easily. Lydia's face contorted with rage. You ungrateful little. I think it's time for you both to leave. I interrupted, moving towards the door. Grayson grabbed my arm. Evelyn, please. We can talk about this. I wrenched my arm free. There's nothing left to say. Get out of my house. Both of you. For a moment, I thought Grayson might argue further. But something in my expression must have convinced him of my resolve. He nodded stiffly and turned to his mother. Come on, Mother. We're leaving. Lydia looked like she wanted to say more, but Grayson practically dragged her out the door. As they reached the porch, Lydia turned back, her eyes cold. This isn't over, Evelyn. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I met her gaze unflinchingly. Neither do you, Lydia. Neither do you. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding. The house felt emptier now, but also lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. I pulled out my phone and dialed my mother's number. Mom, it's done. They're gone. Rose's voice was warm and supportive. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Are you okay? I took a deep breath, surveying the house that had once been my dream home. I will be. I think it's time for a fresh start. As I hung up, I felt a sense of possibility wash over me. Grayson and his family had tried to break me, to mold me into their perfect, compliant wife. But they had failed. I was stronger than they knew, and I was ready to reclaim my life on my own terms. The war might not be over, but I had won this battle. And I was just getting started. The next morning, I woke with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in months. The confrontation with Grayson and Lydia had ignited a fire in me, and I was determined to see this through. I dressed quickly and headed to Montgomery Construction, ready to dive into my new role and start gathering the evidence I needed. As I walked into the office, Rose met me with a concerned smile. How are you holding up, sweetheart? I'm okay, Mom, I assured her. Actually, I'm better than okay. I'm ready to fight back. She squeezed my arm. That's my girl. Come on, there's something I need to show you. We headed to her office, where she pulled out a thick file. I've been doing some digging, she said, her voice low. Grayson's been up to more than just having an affair. I leaned forward, my heart racing. What do you mean? Rose spread out several documents on her desk. Look at these. Financial reports, bank statements, emails. Grayson's been siphoning money from your joint accounts for months. I scanned the papers, my blood boiling as I saw the evidence in black and white. Thousands of dollars transferred to an account I didn't recognize. Is this for Maya? I asked, my voice tight. Rose shook her head. I don't think so. Look at the account name. I squinted at the fine print. Hartman Enterprises? I've never heard of it. That's because it doesn't exist, Rose said grimly. At least, not officially. It's a shell company, Evelyn. Grayson's been funneling money through it, probably to hide it from you during the divorce. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Not only had Grayson betrayed me emotionally, but he'd also been planning to leave me financially destitute. That bastard, I whispered, my hands shaking with rage. Rose placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. I know it's hard, honey, but we can use this. With this evidence, we can nail him to the wall in the divorce proceedings. I nodded, my mind racing. We need more, though. If he's been doing this with our personal accounts, what's he been doing with the company? For the next few hours, Rose and I pored over financial records, cross-referencing dates and transactions. It was tedious work, but with each discovery, My resolve strengthened. By mid-afternoon, we had uncovered a disturbing pattern. Grayson had been manipulating contracts, inflating costs, and skimming off the top. He'd been careful, never taking enough to raise immediate suspicion, but over time, it added up to a significant amount. He's been stealing from the company, I said, my voice hollow. From my family. Rose's face was a mask of controlled anger. We've got him, Evelyn, but we need to be smart about how we use this information. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Oliver poked his head in, his expression grim. Evelyn, there's someone here to see you. I exchanged a worried glance with Rose before following my father out. To my surprise, standing in the reception area was Maya Reynolds. She looked as polished and beautiful as ever, but there was a vulnerability in her eyes that I'd never seen before. Evelyn, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I think we need to talk. I led her to a private conference room, my mind whirling. What could Grayson's mistress possibly want with me? Once we were seated, Maya took a deep breath. I'm so sorry, she blurted out. I didn't know. I swear, I had no idea you and Grayson were still together. I felt a flicker of pity for her, despite everything. He lied to you too, didn't he? She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. He told me you two had separated months ago, that he was just waiting for the right time to file for divorce. I believed him. God, I was so stupid. I handed her a tissue, my own emotions a confusing mix of anger and empathy. You're not stupid, Maya. Grayson's very good at what he does. Maya composed herself, then reached into her purse. I found something. After you sent those documents to my place, I started looking closer at some things Grayson had left at my apartment. She pulled out a USB drive. There are emails on here. Plans. He was going to use me to get to my father's company, just like he used you for Montgomery Construction. I took the drive, my hand shaking slightly. Thank you, Maya. This could change everything. As Maya left, I felt a strange sense of camaraderie with her. We'd both been pawns in Grayson's game, but now, we were taking back control. I rushed back to Rose's office, brandishing the USB drive. Mom, we've got more evidence. It's time to take this to the next level. Rose's eyes gleamed with determination. What do you have in mind? I smiled, a plan already forming. I think it's time we set a trap for Grayson, and I know just how to do it. As we began to strategize, I felt a surge of confidence. Grayson had underestimated me, thinking I was just a naive, compliant wife. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. The game was changing, and this time I was going to be the one calling the shots. The next week passed in a blur of meticulous planning and carefully orchestrated deception. By day, I threw myself into work at Montgomery Construction, learning the ins and outs of the business I'd ignored for too long. By night, I plotted Grayson's downfall with a determination that surprised even me. Are you sure about this, Evelyn? My father asked one evening as we pored over the final details of our plan. There's no going back once we set this in motion. I met his gaze, my resolve unwavering. I'm sure, Dad. Grayson needs to pay for what he's done. To me, to our family, to the company. Rose squeezed my hand. We're with you, sweetheart. Every step of the way. As the day of Grayson's business trip approached, I felt a strange mix of anticipation and dread. I had to play my part perfectly, maintain the facade of the loving, unsuspecting wife right up until the moment I pulled the rug out from under him. The morning of his departure, I woke early to make Grayson's favorite breakfast. As I stood at the stove, flipping pancakes, I felt his arms snake around my waist. Something smells good, he murmured, nuzzling my neck. I forced a smile, turning to face him. I wanted to send you off right. Big presentation today, isn't it? Grayson nodded, his eyes gleaming with excitement that I now recognized as greed. Could be a game changer for the company. For us. If only he knew how right he was. We ate breakfast in companionable silence, Grayson occasionally checking his phone and muttering about last-minute details. I watched him, marveling at how easily the lies fell from his lips. As he prepared to leave, I handed him his briefcase. I packed you a little surprise, I said, gesturing to the front pocket. Don't open it until you're on the plane. Grayson's face softened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd fallen in love with. You're too good to me, Evelyn. I swallowed hard, pushing down the lump in my throat. Have a safe flight. I love you. He kissed me goodbye, and as the door closed behind him, I let out a shaky breath. The surprise I'd packed was a USB drive containing all the evidence of his embezzlement and infidelity. By the time he landed, his world would be crumbling around him. I waited until I was sure Grayson had left before springing into action. I called Rose, my voice steady. It's done.
He's gone.
Time for phase 2. Within an hour, a team from Montgomery Construction arrived at the house. Under the guise of some routine maintenance work I'd scheduled weeks ago, they began the process of documenting every inch of the property. As I watched them work, cataloging our possessions and taking meticulous notes, I felt a strange sense of detachment. This house, once my dream home, now felt like nothing more than an elaborate stage set for Grayson's deceptions. Midway through the day, my phone buzzed with a text from Grayson. Just boarded. Thanks for the surprise, babe. You always know how to make me smile. I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to warn him, to give him one last chance to come clean. But I thought of all the lies, all the betrayals, and my resolve hardened. Glad you like it, I typed back. Have a great trip. Can't wait to hear all about it when you get back. As I hit send, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. There was no going back now. The rest of the day passed in a flurry of activity. I met with our lawyer, finalizing the divorce papers and ensuring everything was in order for the legal battle I knew was coming. I transferred the last of my personal belongings to my parents' house, leaving behind only what was necessary to maintain the illusion that nothing had changed. As evening fell, I stood in the empty living room, memories washing over me. Our first night in the house, the parties we'd hosted, the quiet evenings curled up on the couch. All of it tainted now by the knowledge of Grayson's true nature. My phone buzzed again, a message from Rose. It's done. Everything's in place. Are you ready for tomorrow? I took a deep breath, looking around the room one last time. I'm ready, I typed back. Tomorrow, Grayson would return to find his life in shambles. The house he'd used to impress his colleagues and mistresses would be gone. His reputation, both personal and professional, would be in tatters. And I would be waiting, ready to show him exactly who he'd underestimated. As I locked the front door for the last time, I felt a surge of anticipation. The calm before the storm was over. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. And I was ready for war. The morning dawned crisp and clear, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I stood at the edge of our property, watching as the Montgomery construction crew arrived. Heavy machinery rumbled up the driveway, a fleet of trucks following close behind. This was it, the point of no return. Are you absolutely certain about this, Evelyn? My father asked, his voice low and concerned. I nodded, my eyes never leaving the house. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Dad. With a deep breath, I gave the signal. The foreman nodded, and the air filled with the deafening roar of engines coming to life. I watched, heart pounding, as the first excavators claw bit into the side of the house. The crack of splintering wood and shattering glass was like music to my ears. As the demolition progressed, I felt a strange mix of emotions wash over me. Grief for the life I thought I'd had, anger at Grayson's betrayal, and an overwhelming sense of liberation. With each wall that fell, I felt the weight of lies and manipulation crumbling away. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Rose. It's done. The evidence has been delivered to the authorities. There's no going back now. I typed back a quick reply. Good. Let it all burn. By midday, our dream home, the stage for Grayson's elaborate deceptions, was nothing more than a pile of rubble. I walked through the debris, picking up fragments of our life together. A shard of the vase we'd bought on our honeymoon, a twisted picture frame that once held a photo of us smiling on the beach. All of it meaningless now. As the crew began clearing the site, my phone rang. Grayson's name flashed on the screen. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and answered. Evelyn. His voice was frantic. What the hell is going on? I just got a call from the police. They're saying something about embezzlement and fraud. And why isn't Maya answering her phone? I let out a cold laugh. Oh, Grayson. You really should have been more careful with your secrets. What are you talking about? He sputtered. Where are you? I'm coming home right now. Home, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. I'm afraid you'll find that a bit difficult. You see, our house seems to have had a little accident. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Grayson spoke again, his voice was low and dangerous. What have you done, Evelyn? I walked to the edge of the property, looking out over the empty lot where our house once stood. I've done exactly what you taught me to do, darling. I've taken control. I've seized an opportunity. I've used every resource at my disposal to get what I want. You stupid bitch, he hissed. You have no idea what you've done. When you get back, you'll find divorce papers waiting for you, I interrupted, along with a team of lawyers ready to bury you in litigation. Oh, and I wouldn't count on Maya for support. She's had quite the revelation about your true nature. I could hear Grayson's ragged breathing on the other end of the line. This isn't over, Evelyn. You think you've won, but you have no idea who you're dealing with. No, Grayson, I said, my voice steady and cold. You're the one who had no idea who he was dealing with. I'm not just some stepping stone. I'm Evelyn Montgomery, and I'm the woman who's going to bring your whole world crashing down. I ended the call, a sense of grim satisfaction settling over me. I knew this was just the beginning. Grayson wouldn't go down without a fight, and his parents, Lydia especially, would no doubt rally to his defense. But for the first time in years, I felt truly in control of my own destiny. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the empty lot, I felt a presence beside me. Rose put her arm around my shoulders, and we stood in silence, watching the last of the debris being cleared away. What now? She asked softly. I turned to her, a small smile playing on my lips. Now, we prepare for war. Grayson and the Hartmans are going to throw everything they have at us. We need to be ready. Rose nodded, her eyes gleaming with determination. We will be. The whole family is behind you, Evelyn. We'll face this together. As we walked away from the ruins of my old life, I felt a surge of strength and purpose. Grayson had underestimated me, seen me as nothing more than a pawn in his game. But he was about to learn that sometimes the pawn becomes the queen. And in this game, I was playing to win. The aftermath of the demolition was a whirlwind of activity. I barely had time to catch my breath before the next phase of my plan kicked into gear. With Grayson's belongings salvaged from the rubble, I set about the task of delivering them to Maya's doorstep, along with a carefully curated package of evidence detailing his deceit. My hands shook as I sealed the final envelope. Inside was a letter to Maya, explaining everything: Grayson's manipulation, his financial fraud, and his plans to use her family's connections for his own gain. I debated long and hard about whether to include the details of our own failing marriage, but in the end, I decided the truth was the kindest thing I could offer her. As I watched the courier drive away with the package, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. There was no going back now. The next 24 hours were a blur of legal meetings and damage control at Montgomery Construction. We'd known there would be fallout from exposing Grayson's embezzlement, but the reality was more chaotic than we'd anticipated. Clients were calling, demanding explanations. The press was sniffing around, sensing a juicy scandal. Through it all, I kept my phone close, waiting for the inevitable. When it finally came, it wasn't a call from Grayson or his lawyers. It was Maya. Is it true? Her voice was barely above a whisper, raw with emotion. All of it. I closed my eyes, steeling myself. Yes, Maya. I'm so sorry. There was a long pause, filled only by the sound of her ragged breathing. When she spoke again, her voice was stronger, tinged with anger. He's here now, you know. Showed up at my door an hour ago, full of excuses and promises. I didn't let him in. A wave of relief washed over me. Good. Maya, I know this is a lot to take in, but… Thank you, she interrupted, for telling me the truth. For not letting him do to me what he did to you. The call ended shortly after, leaving me with a bittersweet sense of closure. One more piece of Grayson's carefully constructed facade had crumbled away. But the real storm was yet to come. It hit with the force of a hurricane the next morning. I was in a meeting with our legal team when my father burst into the room, his face ashen. Evelyn, you need to see this. He handed me his tablet, open to a local news site. The headline made my blood run cold. Montgomery construction heir in bitter divorce battle. Accusations of fraud and destruction of property. The article was a masterpiece of spin, painting Grayson as the victim of a vengeful wife and a corrupt family business. It hinted at deeper scandals, suggesting that the demolition of our house was an attempt to destroy evidence of larger financial crimes. Lydia, I growled, recognizing the manipulative hand of my mother-in-law in every carefully crafted sentence. As if summoned by her name, my phone lit up with an incoming call. Lydia Hartman's number flashed on the screen. I answered, my voice cold. Hello, Lydia. Evelyn, darling. Her tone was saccharine, dripping with false concern. I just saw the most distressing news. Are you all right? This must be such a difficult time for you. I gritted my teeth, seeing through her act. Cut the crap, Lydia. We both know you're behind this hit piece. She laughed, a brittle sound. Oh, Evelyn. Always so quick to accuse. I'm merely looking out for my son's interests. Surely you can understand that. What I understand, I said, my voice low and dangerous, is that you and Grayson have grossly underestimated me. This little media stunt? It's just the beginning of your problems. There was a pause, and when Lydia spoke again, the fake sweetness was gone from her voice. You have no idea what you're up against, you foolish girl. The Hartmans have connections you can't even imagine. We'll bury you and your little family business. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Bring it on, Lydia. I'm not the naive girl you think I am. I've learned from the best. You and Grayson taught me well. I ended the call, my heart pounding. The room had fallen silent, all eyes on me. Well, my father said, breaking the tension. I think it's safe to say the gloves are off. I nodded, a grim determination settling over me. We knew this was coming. Time to put our contingency plans into action. For the rest of the day, we worked tirelessly, countering the Hartmans' narrative with our own press releases, reaching out to loyal clients to reassure them, and preparing for the legal battle ahead. As night fell, I found myself standing at the window of my office, looking out over the city. Somewhere out there, Grayson and his family were plotting their next move. But for the first time since this all began, I felt truly ready for whatever they might throw at me. The old Evelyn, the one who had been content to play the role of trophy wife, who had ignored the red flags and swallowed the lies, was gone. In her place stood a woman forged in the fires of betrayal and determination. Grayson had wanted a war. Now he was going to get one. And I intended to win. The legal battle with Grayson and the Hartmans dragged on for months, a grueling war of attrition that tested every ounce of my resolve. But as the dust finally began to settle, I found myself standing on the other side, battered but unbroken. The final hearing was a blur of legal jargon and tense silences. I sat across from Grayson, studying the man I'd once loved. He looked older, the strain of the past months etched into the lines around his eyes. For a moment, I felt a flicker of pity, quickly extinguished by the memory of his betrayal. As the judge delivered her verdict, I held my breath. The words washed over me like a cleansing wave. In favor of the plaintiff, Evelyn Montgomery. It was over. We'd won. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by a sea of reporters, I felt my mother's hand slip into mine. Rose's voice was steady as she addressed the crowd. Montgomery Construction has always stood for integrity and hard work. Today's verdict reaffirms those values. We're grateful for the court's decision and look forward to moving past this difficult chapter. I met Grayson's eyes as he pushed through the crowd. For a moment, the mask slipped and I saw a flicker of the man I'd married, vulnerable, almost lost. But then Lydia appeared at his side, her face a storm of barely contained rage, and the moment passed. "This isn't over," Lydia hissed as they brushed past us. I smiled, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "Yes, Lydia, it is." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. With the legal battle behind us, I threw myself into rebuilding both the company and my life. We weathered the storm of bad press, emerging stronger and more united as a family and a business. On a crisp autumn morning, I stood in front of a modest craftsman-style house, keys in hand. It wasn't the sprawling mansion Grayson and I had shared, but as I walked through the rooms, I felt something I hadn't in years, a sense of home. As I unpacked, I came across a photo album I'd forgotten about. Inside were snapshots of my life with Grayson, our wedding, vacations, parties with friends. I traced my finger over our smiling faces, remembering the hope and love I'd felt back then. For the first time since everything had fallen apart, I allowed myself to cry. Not for the loss of Grayson or the life we'd had, but for the woman I'd been. Naive, trusting, willing to dim her own light to make someone else shine brighter. A knock at the door startled me from my reverie. I opened it to find Maya standing on my porch, looking nervous but determined. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said softly. I wanted to thank you, and to apologize." I invited her in, and over cups of tea, we talked, really talked for the first time, about Grayson, about the pain of betrayal, and about the strength it takes to rebuild. As Maya was leaving, she turned to me, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "You know, Evelyn, I used to be so jealous of you. I thought you had everything. But now I see that what you have, your strength, your family, your sense of self, those are the things that really matter." Her words stayed with me long after she'd gone, a reminder of how far I'd come. That night, I sat on my new porch, watching the sun set over the neighborhood. My phone buzzed with a text from Rose. "Proud of you, sweetheart. Your father, and I can't wait to see the new place tomorrow." I smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude for my family's unwavering support. They had been my rock through all of this, reminding me of who I was when I'd lost sight of myself. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the fight to reclaim my life, it had all led to this moment of quiet peace. I wasn't the same woman who had stood in that kitchen, shattered by Grayson's cruel words. I was stronger now, wiser, more aware of my own worth. I had faced my fears, stood up to manipulation and deceit, and come out the other side. The future stretched out before me, full of possibilities. There would be challenges, of course. The scars of what I'd been through wouldn't fade overnight. But for the first time in a long time, I felt truly excited about what lay ahead. I took a deep breath, savoring the crisp night air. Grayson had called me a stepping stone, but he'd been wrong. I wasn't a stepping stone in someone else's journey. I was the architect of my own path, the builder of my own dreams. As I stood to go inside, I paused for a moment, looking up at the stars. "Thank you," I whispered, to no one and everyone at once. For the lessons, for the strength, for the chance to start anew. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to grow and learn. But tonight, in this moment of hard-won peace, I was exactly where I needed to be. I was home.
The ultrasound screen flickered to life, a grainy black and white image pulsing before my eyes. I gripped the edge of the exam table, my heart racing with a mix of excitement and anxiety. This was it, our first glimpse of our baby. "Everything looks great, Mrs. Pearson," the technician said, her voice warm and reassuring. "Would you like me to print out a picture for you and your husband?" I swallowed hard, fighting back the lump in my throat. "Just me today," I managed to say. "My husband couldn't make it." The technician's smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. "Of course, I'll print 2 copies for you to take home." As I left the clinic, clutching the precious images in my hand, I couldn't shake the feeling of disappointment that threatened to overwhelm me. Ethan had promised he'd be here. He'd sworn up and down that nothing would keep him from this moment. Yet here I was, alone again. I pulled out my phone, my fingers hovering over Ethan's name. Should I call him? Tell him what he'd missed? But what was the point? He probably wouldn't even pick up. Instead, I dialed my best friend Sarah, answering on the first ring. The baby's perfect, I was trying to inject some enthusiasm into my voice. Healthy and right on track. And Ethan? I sighed. MIA. Again. Sarah's sharp intake of breath crackled through the phone. Oh, Audrey, I'm so sorry. What did he say when you called him? I didn't, I admitted. What's the use? He's probably neck-deep in some project oblivious to the world around him. You need to talk to him, Aud. This isn't right. I knew she was right, but the thought of another confrontation with Ethan made my stomach churn. I will. Tonight, I promise. As I pulled into our driveway, I steeled myself for what was to come. The house was dark, no sign of life within. I shouldn't have been surprised, but disappointment hit me like a punch to the gut. I flicked on the lights, the emptiness of our home suddenly oppressive. How had it come to this? Ethan and I used to be a team, partners in everything. Now I felt like I was navigating this pregnancy alone. The clock ticked past 7, then 8. By 9, I'd given up on dinner, picking at a bowl of cereal as I scrolled through my phone. The ultrasound pictures sat on the kitchen counter, a bittersweet reminder of the day's events. Finally, at 10:30, I heard the garage door rumble open. Ethan's footsteps echoed through the house, growing louder as he approached the kitchen. Hey, he said, his voice weary. Sorry I'm late. The Johnson account is... You missed the ultrasound, I cut him off, my voice sharper than I'd intended. Ethan froze, his eyes widening as realization dawned. That was today? Oh God, Audrey, I'm so sorry, I completely forgot. Forgot, I echoed, disbelief coloring my tone. How could you forget? We've had this appointment on the calendar for weeks. He ran a hand through his hair, looking lost. I've been swamped at work. You know how important this account is for the firm. More important than our baby? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's face crumpled. Of course not. I got caught up. It won't happen again, I promise. But even as the words left his mouth, I knew they were empty. How many promises had he broken in the past few months? How many times had I been left waiting, hoping he'd show up? I stood up, suddenly unable to bear his presence. I'm going to bed, I said, brushing past him. Audrey, wait, Ethan called after me. Can we talk about this? I paused at the foot of the stairs, turning to face him. What's there to talk about, Ethan? You weren't there. Again, I think that says it all. As I climbed the stairs, leaving Ethan standing alone in the kitchen, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted between us. And for the first time since we'd learned I was pregnant, I found myself wondering if I was ready to face parenthood alone. The weeks following the ultrasound incident were a blur of tense silences and half-hearted apologies. Ethan tried. I'll give him that. He brought home flowers, attempted to cook dinner with disastrous results, and even managed to make it to our next doctor's appointment. But something had shifted between us, a chasm opening where there was once solid ground. One particularly rough morning, as I battled another bout of morning sickness, I heard Ethan's footsteps approaching the bathroom. Audrey, you okay in there? His voice was muffled through the door. I wiped my mouth, fighting back tears of frustration. I'm fine, I managed to croak out. All right, well, I've got to head to the office. Big presentation today. You'll be okay? I stared at the closed door, disbelief washing over me. Sure, Ethan. Go. I'll be just fine. The sound of his retreating footsteps felt like a physical blow. I sank to the cool tile floor, one hand resting on my slightly swollen belly. Looks like it's just you and me, little one, I whispered. Later that day, I found myself in my home office, trying to focus on work. My business, a small but growing marketing firm, had been my pride and joy. Now it felt like just another weight on my shoulders. The phone rang, startling me out of my daze. It was my mother. Audrey, honey, how are you feeling? I opened my mouth to say fine, but what came out instead was a choked sob. Oh, sweetheart, my mom's voice softened. What's wrong? And just like that, everything I'd been holding back for weeks came pouring out. Ethan's absence, my fears about the pregnancy, the loneliness that seemed to permeate every corner of my life. Why don't you come stay with us for a few days? Mom suggested when I'd finally run out of words. Your father and I would love to have you. The offer was tempting, but I hesitated. I don't know, Mom. Ethan will understand, she said firmly. You need support right now, Audrey. Let us help. That evening, when Ethan finally came home, I was packing a small suitcase. What's going on? He asked, confusion etched across his face. I'm going to stay with my parents for a few days, I said, not meeting his eyes. What? Why? I whirled to face him, sudden anger flaring. Because I can't do this anymore, Ethan. I can't sit in this house, feeling alone and scared, while you bury yourself in work. Audrey, I'm trying. Are you? I shot back. Because from where I'm standing, it doesn't look like you're trying at all. It looks like you're running away. Ethan's face hardened. That's not fair. I'm working hard to provide for our family. We need more than money, Ethan. We need you, I need you. So your solution is to run to Mommy and Daddy? He scoffed. The words hit me like a slap. At least they're there for me, I said, my voice low and trembling. Ethan's eyes widened, realizing he'd gone too far. Audrey, I didn't mean. Save it. I cut him off, zipping up my suitcase. I'll be at my parents'. Call me when you're ready to be a partner in this marriage again. I brushed past him, suitcase in hand, fighting back tears as I made my way to the car. As I pulled out of the driveway, I saw Ethan standing in the doorway, watching me go. For a moment, I thought he might come after me, might try to stop me. He didn't. The drive to my parents' house was a blur. As by the time I pulled into their driveway, my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. The front door opened before I could even get out of the car, my mother's worried face appearing in the warm light spilling from inside. Oh, honey, she said, wrapping me in a hug as soon as I was close enough. It's going to be okay? And for the first time in weeks, surrounded by the familiar scents and sounds of my childhood home, I felt like maybe, just maybe, it would be. The days at my parents' house blurred together, a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. Mom fussed over me, making sure I ate properly and rested, while Dad kept me distracted with his corny jokes and endless stories about his glory days. It felt like stepping back in time, before the complications of adulthood had set in. One morning, as I sat on the porch swing, sipping decaf and watching the neighborhood come to life, Mom joined me. How are you feeling, sweetheart? She asked, her eyes searching my face. I sighed, resting a hand on my growing belly. Better, I think. It's been nice to just breathe for a while. She nodded, patting my knee. Have you talked to Ethan? The mention of his name sent a jolt through me. He's called a few times, left messages. And? I shrugged, avoiding her gaze. I'm not ready yet. Mom was quiet for a moment, then said softly, You can't avoid him forever, Audrey. You're having a baby together. Her words hit me like a bucket of cold water, reality crashing back in. Before I could respond, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway caught our attention. My heart leaped into my throat as I recognized Ethan's SUV. But it wasn't just Ethan. As the car doors opened, I saw his parents, Veronica and Jonathan, emerge as well. Did you know they were coming? I hissed at my mom. She shook her head, looking as surprised as I felt. Your father must have called them. I stood up, suddenly feeling exposed in my oversized t-shirt and leggings. Ethan approached first, his face a mask of concern and regret. Audrey, he said, his voice cracking slightly. Can we talk? I nodded stiffly, leading him inside to the living room. Veronica and Jonathan followed, exchanging awkward greetings with my parents. Once we were all seated, an uncomfortable silence fell over the room. It was Veronica who finally broke it. Audrey, dear, she began, her voice gentle. We're so sorry about everything that's been happening. Ethan told us about how things have been. I glanced at Ethan, who was staring at his hands, looking more defeated than I'd ever seen him. Jonathan cleared his throat. Son, why don't you tell Audrey what you told us? Ethan looked up, his eyes meeting mine. I've been an idiot, Audrey. I got so caught up in trying to prove myself at work, to be the provider I thought I needed to be, that I forgot what really matters. He paused, swallowing hard. You matter. Our baby matters, and I'm so sorry for making you feel alone. I felt tears pricking at my eyes, a mix of relief and lingering hurt washing over me. It's not just about being alone, Ethan. It's about feeling like we're not partners anymore, like I'm facing all of this by myself. I know, he said, his voice thick with emotion, and I want to change that. I've talked to my boss about cutting back my hours, about working from home more. I want to be there for you, for every appointment, every milestone, if you'll let me. I looked around the room at the hopeful faces of our parents, then back to Ethan. "I want to believe you," I said slowly. "But words aren't enough anymore. I need to see action." Ethan nodded eagerly. "Absolutely. Whatever it takes, Audrey. I'll prove it to you." As we continued to talk, hashing out plans and promises, I felt a cautious hope blooming in my chest. But there was still a nagging doubt, a fear that we'd fall back into old patterns. Later that night, as I lay in my childhood bed, I placed both hands on my belly, feeling the slight flutter of movement within. "What do you think, little one?" I whispered. "Should we give Daddy another chance?" The baby kicked in response, and I couldn't help but smile. Maybe, just maybe, we could make this work after all. But as I drifted off to sleep, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered a warning. Trust, once broken, is not easily mended. The drive home from my parents' house was filled with a nervous energy. Ethan and I had spent the past week rebuilding our connection, talking late into the night about our fears, hopes, and expectations for our growing family. His promises of change seemed sincere, but a part of me remained guarded, waiting to see if his actions would match his words. As we pulled into our driveway, Ethan reached over and squeezed my hand. "Welcome home, love," he said, a tentative smile on his face. I returned the smile, trying to ignore the flutter of anxiety in my chest. It's good to be back. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of doctor's appointments, birthing classes, and nursery preparations. True to his word, Ethan was present for every moment, his enthusiasm infectious. I found myself slowly letting my guard down, allowing hope to bloom once more. One evening, as we sat on the couch reviewing our birth plan, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his brow furrowing. "Everything okay?" I asked, noticing his sudden tension. He hesitated before answering. "It's work. There's a crisis with the Johnson account. They're asking me to fly out to Chicago tomorrow." My heart sank. "Tomorrow? But we have our LeMay's class and the nursery furniture is being delivered." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, looking torn. I know, but this account is huge, Audrey. If we lose it..." I felt a familiar anger rising. "So what? All those promises about putting family first were just talk?" "Of course not," he said, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. "It's just one trip. I'll be back before you know it." I stood up, suddenly feeling suffocated. "Go then. Do what you have to do." "Audrey, please," Ethan pleaded. "Don't be like this. I'm trying." "Are you?" I shot back. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks an awful lot like before." Before Ethan could respond, a sharp pain ripped through my abdomen. I gasped, doubling over. "Audrey!" Ethan was at my side in an instant, his face pale with worry. "What's wrong?" "I don't know," I managed through gritted teeth. "Something's not right." The next few hours passed in a blur of ambulance sirens, hospital corridors, and frantic doctors. By the time I was wheeled into the delivery room, I was delirious with pain and fear. "It's too early," I kept saying, gripping Ethan's hand so tightly I thought I might break it. "She's not ready." But ready or not, our daughter was determined to make her entrance into the world. After what felt like an eternity of pushing and pain, a tiny, angry cry filled the room. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, holding up our impossibly small daughter. "Harper," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "Her name is Harper." As the nurses whisked her away to the NICU, I turned to Ethan. His face was a mix of joy and terror, mirroring my own emotions. "She's so small," he said, his voice cracking. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. In that moment, all our previous arguments seemed trivial. We were parents now, united in our love and fear for this tiny human we'd created. The next few days were a roller coaster of emotions. Harper was a fighter, growing stronger each day, but the sight of her in the incubator, hooked up to various machines, was almost more than I could bear. Ethan never left my side, canceling his trip and delegating the Johnson account to a colleague. He spent hours by Harper's incubator, talking softly to her, promising her the world. As I watched them together, I felt a renewed sense of commitment to our family. We'd been given a second chance, and I was determined not to waste it. But life, I was learning, had a way of throwing curveballs when you least expected them, and our biggest challenge was yet to come. The first few months of motherhood were a blur of sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and a love so fierce it took my breath away. Harper was thriving. Her premature birth, nothing but a distant memory, as she grew into a happy, chubby-cheeked baby. But as I settled into my new role as a mother, I found myself struggling to keep all the plates spinning. One particularly chaotic morning, I was trying to feed Harper while simultaneously participating in a conference call for my business. Ethan had left for work before dawn as usual, leaving me to juggle everything alone. "Yes, Mr. Donovan, I understand the importance of the deadline," I said into my headset, my voice strained as I attempted to spoon pureed carrots into Harper's resistant mouth. "I assure you, we'll have the proposal ready by—" Suddenly, Harper's tiny hand knocked the spoon, sending orange goop flying across my white blouse. I gasped, momentarily forgetting I was on the call. "Miss Pearson? Is everything all right?" Mr. Donovan's voice crackled through the headset. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. "Yes, I'm sorry. Just a small mishap," as I was saying. But Harper chose that moment to let out an ear-piercing wail, drowning out my words. I felt my face flush with embarrassment and frustration. "Perhaps we should reschedule," Mr. Donovan said, his tone cool and professional. "When you're less distracted." The call ended abruptly, leaving me in stunned silence. Harper continued to cry, orange carrots smeared across her face and my ruined blouse. I felt tears welling up in my own eyes as the weight of everything came crashing down on me. That evening, when Ethan finally came home, I was at my breaking point. "How was your day?" he asked, loosening his tie as he walked into the living room where I sat, surrounded by baby toys and work files. I looked up at him, too exhausted to even muster anger. Awful. I lost a potential client because I couldn't manage a simple phone call without Harper interrupting. I'm behind on 3 projects, the house is a mess, and I can't remember the last time I showered. Ethan's face fell. "I'm sorry, Audrey. Is there anything I can do to help?" "Now you ask," I said, my voice rising. "Where were you this morning when I needed help? Or yesterday? Or the day before that?" "I've been working, Audrey. You know how important this new project is," Ethan defended. "And what about our project?" I gestured to Harper, sleeping peacefully in her playpen. "What about our family?" Ethan ran a hand through his hair, looking conflicted. "I'm trying, Audrey. I really am. But someone has to provide for this family." "And what am I doing?" I shot back. "Playing house? I'm trying to run a business and be a full-time mother with zero support from you." Our raised voices stirred Harper, who began to fuss. I moved to pick her up, but Ethan beat me to it. "I've got her," he said softly, cradling our daughter against his chest. "Why don't you take a break? Go take that shower. Maybe get some rest." I wanted to argue, to make him understand how unfair it all was, but the fight had drained out of me. I nodded silently and headed for the bathroom. As the hot water washed over me, I let the tears flow freely. Something had to give. I couldn't keep going like this, stretched thin between my roles as mother, entrepreneur, and wife. Stepping out of the shower, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked tired, defeated. This wasn't the Audrey I knew, the strong, independent woman who had built a successful business from the ground up. In that moment, I made a decision. Things had to change, and if Ethan wasn't willing to step up, I would have to take matters into my own hands. As I dressed, my mind raced with possibilities. It was time to reclaim my life, my career, and my sense of self. Little did I know, the universe had its own plans, and the true test of our marriage was just around the corner. The doorbell rang just as I was attempting to coax a fussy Harper into eating her dinner. Sighing, I wiped my hands on my stained apron and made my way to the front door, bouncing Harper on my hip. To my surprise, Veronica and Jonathan stood on the porch, arms laden with takeout bags. "Surprise!" Veronica chirped, her smile faltering slightly as she took in my disheveled appearance. "We thought you could use a break and some company." I blinked, momentarily stunned. That's so thoughtful. Please, come in." As we settled in the living room, the aroma of Italian food filling the air, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. It had been so long since anyone had done something kind for me, something that wasn't related to the baby or work. "Where's Ethan?" Jonathan asked, glancing around the room. I swallowed hard. "Working late, again." Veronica and Jonathan exchanged a look that spoke volumes. "Audrey, dear," Veronica began, her voice gentle. "How are you really doing?" The question, so simple yet so loaded, broke something inside me. Before I knew it, I was sobbing, spilling out all my frustrations and fears. Harper, sensing my distress, began to wail as well. Jonathan quickly took Harper, soothing her with a practiced ease that made my heart ache. Veronica wrapped her arm around me, her presence comforting in a way I hadn't realized I needed. "I'm so sorry," I hiccuped, embarrassed by my outburst. "I don't know what came over me." "Oh, honey," Veronica said, her eyes filled with understanding. "You have nothing to apologize for. We had no idea things were this bad." As we talked over dinner with Harper now peacefully asleep, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. Veronica and Jonathan listened without judgment, offering support and advice. "We'll talk to Ethan," Jonathan promised, his usually jovial face serious. "This isn't fair to you or Harper. He needs to step up." I nodded, grateful for their support but also wary. "I've tried talking to him. He always promises to do better, but nothing ever changes." Veronica squeezed my hand. "Let us handle it. You focus on taking care of yourself and this precious granddaughter of ours." As they were leaving, Veronica pulled me into a tight hug. "Remember, you're not alone in this. We're here for you, always." Their visit left me feeling both comforted and conflicted. On one hand, their support meant the world to me. On the other, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was betraying Ethan by airing our dirty laundry to his parents. Later that night, as I was cleaning up the kitchen, my phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Working late again. Don't wait up." I stared at the message, a familiar mix of disappointment and anger rising in my chest. Without thinking, I dialed his number. "Audrey?" Ethan's voice came through, sounding distracted. "Is everything okay?" "No, Ethan, everything is not okay," I said, my voice trembling. "Your parents came over tonight. They could see how much I'm struggling. Why can't you?" There was a long pause. "My parents were there? Why didn't you tell me?" "When, Ethan? When should I have told you? Between your late nights and early mornings, when exactly do we talk anymore?" I heard muffled voices in the background, then Ethan's voice, tense and low. "I can't do this right now, Audrey. We'll talk when I get home." The line went dead before I could respond. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling more alone than ever. As I climbed into our cold, empty bed that night, I made a decision. Tomorrow I would start looking for a nanny. If Ethan wouldn't help, I'd find someone who would. I refused to let my business or my sanity suffer any longer. Little did I know, the next 24 hours would bring a revelation that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my marriage and force me to confront the hardest decision of my life. The front door slammed, jolting me awake. I glanced at the clock, 2:37 a.m. Ethan stumbled into our bedroom, reeking of alcohol and cologne that wasn't mine. "Where have you been?" I demanded, sitting up in bed. Ethan's eyes, bloodshot and unfocused, narrowed at me. "What? Are you my mother now?" "No, I'm your wife and the mother of your child," I shot back, anger rising in my chest. "The wife you've been neglecting and the child you barely see." He scoffed, fumbling with his tie. "Oh, here we go again. Poor Audrey, always the victim." His words hit me like a slap. "Victim? Is that what you think this is about?" "I think it's about you not understanding the pressure I'm under," Ethan slurred. "I'm out there providing for this family while you—" "While I what?" I interrupted, my voice dangerously low. "While I run a business and take care of our daughter single-handedly?" Ethan waved dismissively. "Your parents were here, weren't they? Bet you all had a grand time talking about what a terrible husband and father I am." I got out of bed, my whole body shaking with rage and hurt. "They came because they care, Ethan. Because they can see what this is doing to me, to us." "Oh, spare me the dramatics," Ethan sneered. "You've got it so hard, don't you? Living in this nice house, not having to worry about money." "Money?" I laughed bitterly. "You think that's what this is about? When was the last time you held your daughter, Ethan? When was the last time we had a conversation that wasn't about work or schedules?" Ethan opened his mouth to retort, but at that moment, his phone buzzed loudly on the nightstand. We both froze, staring at the device. Before I could react, Ethan lunged for it, but in his inebriated state, he fumbled and the phone clattered to the floor between us. I snatched it up, my heart pounding. A text notification lit up the screen. "Caroline, can't wait to see you tomorrow. Last night was amazing." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I looked up at Ethan, whose face had drained of all color. "Audrey," he began, his voice suddenly sober. "I can explain." "Explain," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Explain what, Ethan? How you've been cheating on me? How long has this been going on?" Ethan reached for me, but I recoiled. It's not what you think. Caroline is just... Don't, I cut him off, holding up a hand. Don't you dare lie to me. Not now. As if on cue, Harper's cries echoed through the baby monitor. The sound snapped me out of my shock, and I moved towards the door. Where are you going? Ethan asked, panic edging into his voice. To take care of our daughter, I replied coldly. Something you clearly haven't been interested in doing. I spent the rest of the night in the nursery, cradling Harper and trying to make sense of my shattered world. By the time dawn broke, I had cried myself out, leaving nothing but a hollow ache in my chest. When I finally emerged, Ethan was sitting at the kitchen table, head in his hands. He looked up as I entered, his eyes red-rimmed and pleading. Audrey, please, he began. We need to talk about this. I stared at him. This man I thought I knew, this man I had loved and trusted. In that moment, I felt something inside me harden. Yes, we do, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. But not now. Right now, I need you to leave. Leave? Ethan echoed, disbelief coloring his tone. This is my house too, Audrey. I met his gaze unflinchingly. And this is my life, Ethan. A life you've been lying to for God knows how long. So yes, you need to leave. Now. As Ethan gathered some belongings, moving like a man in a daze, I stood in the kitchen, Harper on my hip, feeling both terrified and strangely calm. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. The days following Ethan's departure blurred together in a haze of tears, sleepless nights, and endless questions. I moved through our house like a ghost, tending to Harper on autopilot while my mind raced with memories and doubts. On the third day, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Veronica and Jonathan standing there, their faces etched with concern and something else, shame. We know, Veronica said softly, pulling me into a tight embrace. Ethan told us everything. Those words broke the dam I'd been desperately trying to hold back. I collapsed into her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Jonathan gently guided us inside, closing the door behind us. Once I'd calmed down enough to speak, Ethan's parents shared what they knew. The affair had indeed been going on for over a year, starting when I was just a few months pregnant. Caroline was Ethan's assistant, young and ambitious. Everything I used to be before motherhood had consumed my life. We're so sorry, Audrey, Jonathan said, his voice thick with emotion. We had no idea, if we'd known. I shook my head, wiping away tears. It's not your fault. I didn't know either. Veronica squeezed my hand. What do you need from us? Whatever it is, we're here for you and Harper. Their unwavering support, despite the circumstances, touched me deeply. In that moment, I realized I had a choice to make. I could let this betrayal destroy me, or I could use it as a catalyst for change. I began, my voice growing stronger with each word. I think I need to start over, for myself and for Harper. Over the next few weeks, with Veronica and Jonathan's help, I began to rebuild my life. They offered financial support, allowing me to hire a part-time nanny so I could refocus on my business. More importantly, they stood by me as I made the difficult decision to separate from Ethan permanently. When Ethan finally came to collect the rest of his things, I was ready. He stood in my living room, looking lost and remorseful. Audrey, I know I've made terrible mistakes, he began, but I love you and Harper. We can work through this, can't we? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. No, Ethan, we can't. What you did, it's not just about the affair. It's about the months of neglect, the broken promises, the way you made me feel like I was failing as a wife and mother when you were the one who'd checked out of our marriage. Ethan's face crumpled. I never meant to hurt you. I got caught up in work, in feeling important, and I lost sight of what really mattered. But I want to make it right. Please, give me another chance. For a moment I wavered. The part of me that still loved him, that remembered the man he used to be, wanted to say yes. But then I thought of Harper, of the example I wanted to set for her. I'm sorry, Ethan, but no, I said firmly. I deserve better than this. Harper deserves better. And honestly, you need to be better. Not for us, but for yourself. As Ethan left for the last time, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in months I felt hope. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into my work and my role as Harper's mother with renewed vigor. My business began to thrive again, and I found a balance I never thought possible. One evening, As I sat on the porch watching the sunset with Harper in my arms, I made a silent promise to myself and my daughter. We would never again compromise our self-respect or happiness for anyone. We were strong, we were resilient, and we had each other. As if sensing my thoughts, Harper looked up at me with her big, innocent eyes and smiled. In that moment, I knew we would be okay. More than okay, we would thrive. The future stretched out before us, full of possibilities and hope. It wasn't the life I had planned, but as I hugged my daughter close, I realized it was the life we needed. We were writing our own story now, and it was going to be beautiful. The shattered pieces of my favorite vase lay scattered across the hardwood floor, a fitting metaphor for my crumbling marriage. I stood frozen, staring at the mess, my trembling hands still clutching the damning evidence. Alex's phone with a string of intimate text messages from someone named Margaret. "Stephanie, I can explain." Alex's voice cracked behind me. I whirled around, my eyes blazing. "Explain? Explain what, Alex? How you've been lying to me? Cheating on me?" My voice rose with each accusation. He took a step forward, hands raised in surrender. "It's not what you think. Margaret's just what?" I spat. "A friend? A colleague? Don't insult my intelligence." The tension in the room was palpable, thick enough to choke on. I could see the panic in Alex's eyes, the way he kept glancing at the door as if plotting his escape. "How long?" I demanded. "Steph, please, how long?" he sighed, shoulders sagging. 6 months. The admission hit me like a physical blow. 6 months, half a year of lies, of betrayal. I stumbled backward, gripping the edge of the kitchen counter for support. "I'm sorry," Alex whispered. "I never meant for this to happen." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Oh, you never meant for it to happen? What, did you trip and fall into her bed?" "It's not like that," he protested weakly. "Then what is it like, Alex? Please enlighten me." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing. Now it just made my stomach churn. "Things haven't been great between us lately. You're always working, always stressed. Margaret," she listened. She understood. "And I don't?" I felt my anger rising again. "I've supported you, Alex. I've worked my ass off so you could stay home, pursue your passions. Was this how you repaid me?" The doorbell rang, startling us both. I glanced at the clock, 3:15 p.m., right on time. "That's Laura," I said. My voice suddenly calm. "I asked her to come over." Alex's eyes widened. "You told Laura?" "No," I replied, moving towards the door. "But I'm about to." "Stephanie, wait." I yanked open the door, revealing Laura's concerned face. "Hey, sweetie. I came as soon as I got your message. What's wrong?" I stepped aside, allowing her to enter. "Laura, I'm so glad you're here. I need your help. It seems your dear friend Alex has been having an affair." Laura gasped, her gaze darting between Alex and me. "What? Alex, is this true?" Alex's face had gone pale. "Laura, it's complicated. You don't understand." "Oh, I think I understand perfectly," Laura cut him off, her voice ice cold. She turned to me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "What do you need, Steph?" I took a deep breath, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. "I need you to help me pack a bag. I'm staying at my mother's tonight." "Of course," Laura nodded, shooting Alex a withering glare. As we headed upstairs, I heard Alex call out desperately, "Stephanie, please, we can work this out. Don't leave." I paused on the stairs, turning to face him one last time. "You know, Alex, when Laura introduced us, I thought I'd found my happily ever after. Guess I was wrong." With that, I continued up the stairs, leaving Alex standing alone in the wreckage of our living room and our marriage. As I threw clothes into a suitcase, my mind raced with questions. How had we gotten here? What would I do now? And most importantly, how would I make Alex pay for what he'd done? One thing was certain. This was far from over. The gentle hum of my mother's ancient coffee maker filled the kitchen as I sat at her worn oak table, staring into the depths of my mug. It had been 3 days since I'd left Alex, and the pain hadn't dulled one bit. "Sweetie, you need to eat something," Mom said, sliding a plate of toast in front of me. I shook my head. "I'm not hungry," she sighed, taking the seat across from me. "Stephanie, I know you're hurting, but starving yourself won't solve anything." "Nothing will solve this, Mom," I muttered. The doorbell rang, startling us both. Mom rose to answer it, and I heard Laura's voice in the hallway. A moment later, they both entered the kitchen. "Hey, Steph," Laura said softly, her eyes full of concern. "How are you holding up?" I shrugged, unable to form words. Laura sat beside me, placing a comforting hand on my arm. "I brought you something," she said, sliding an envelope across the table. "It's the information on that divorce lawyer I told you about." The word divorce hit me like a punch to the gut. "I don't know if I'm ready for that," I whispered. Laura's expression hardened. "Steph, you can't let him get away with this. You deserve better." "But what if it was just a one-time thing?" I heard myself say, hating how weak I sounded. "Maybe we could work it out." "Stephanie Marie," my mother's sharp tone cut through my thoughts. "Don't you dare make excuses for that man. He betrayed you." I felt tears welling up in my eyes. "I know, but we've been together for so long. How did we end up here?" Laura squeezed my hand. "Why don't you tell us about it? Sometimes talking helps." I took a deep breath, memories flooding back. "Do you remember when we first met? At that charity gala?" Laura nodded, a small smile on her face. "Of course, you were working yourself to death, and I was determined to find you a nice guy to balance you out." "And you introduced me to Alex," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "He was so charming, so attentive. Remember how he brought me coffee every morning at the office for a week straight?" "He certainly knew how to make an impression," Mom chimed in. I nodded, lost in the memories. "He was so supportive of my career, always pushing me to go for promotions, to take on more responsibility. He said he was proud of my ambition." "What changed?" Laura asked gently. I shrugged, feeling the familiar ache in my chest. "I don't know. After I got that big promotion last year, things just shifted. He started complaining about how much I worked, how I was never home. It's like he resented my success." "Men often do," Mom muttered. "But that's no excuse for cheating," Laura added firmly. I nodded, feeling a spark of anger ignite within me. "You're right, it's not." Just then my phone buzzed. I glanced at it, my heart racing when I saw Alex's name on the screen. "It's him," I said, my voice shaking. Laura's eyes narrowed. "What does he want?" I opened the message, my hands trembling. As I read it, I felt the blood drain from my face. "Steph?" Mom's voice sounded far away. "What is it?" I looked up, meeting their concerned gazes. He wants to meet. Says he has something important to tell me." Laura scoffed. "Probably more lies." But something in Alex's message nagged at me. The tone was different, almost desperate. "I think I should go," I said, surprising myself. "Absolutely not," Mom protested. "Stephanie, you can't be serious," Laura added. I stood up, suddenly feeling more alive than I had in days. "I need to know what he has to say. I need closure." They exchanged worried glances, but I had made up my mind. Whatever Alex had to tell me, I was ready to face it. And if he thought this would be an easy reconciliation, he had another thing coming. As I grabbed my coat and keys, I felt a strange mix of dread and anticipation. This meeting could change everything, and I was determined to come out on top. The coffee shop bustled with afternoon activity as I sat across from Alex, my hands wrapped tightly around a steaming mug. His eyes were bloodshot, his usually neatly trimmed beard unkempt. He looked as terrible as I felt. "Thanks for meeting me, Steph," he said, his voice hoarse. I nodded curtly. "What's this about, Alex?" He took a deep breath. "I wanted to apologize. What I did, it's unforgivable. But there's something else you need to know." My heart raced. What could be worse than what he'd already done? "Margaret's pregnant," he blurted out. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I gripped the table, feeling dizzy. "What?" Alex's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Stephanie. I never meant for any of this to happen." Rage bubbled up inside me. "You never meant for it to happen? You had an affair, Alex, and now she's pregnant? How could you be so careless?" He flinched at my words. "I know. I messed up, but I want to make things right. I want to come home to work on our marriage." I laughed bitterly. "Our marriage? There is no our anymore, Alex. You destroyed that the moment you decided to cheat." "Please, Steph," he pleaded. "I love you. We can get through this." I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "No, we can't. It's over, Alex." As I stormed out of the coffee shop, my mind reeled. Pregnant. The word echoed in my head, a cruel reminder of what I'd always wanted but never had. Alex and I had tried for years to have a child with no success. And now, this woman, this stranger, was carrying his baby. I found myself walking aimlessly, tears blurring my vision. Memories flooded back of the day Alex suggested he become a stay-at-home husband after my big promotion. "You've worked so hard for this, Steph," he had said, his eyes shining with pride. Let me take care of everything else. You focus on your career. I had been hesitant at first. Are you sure? What about your job? He'd waved off my concerns. My freelance work is flexible. Besides, I've always wanted to try my hand at writing that novel. This is the perfect opportunity. I'd been so touched by his offer, so grateful for his support. Now, looking back, I wondered if that had been the beginning of the end. My phone buzzed insistently in my pocket. I pulled it out to see multiple missed calls from Laura and my mother. Taking a deep breath, I dialed Laura's number. Steph, are you okay? What happened? Laura's worried voice came through. She's pregnant, I said flatly. There was a moment of stunned silence. Oh, Steph, I'm so sorry. Can you come get me? I don't think I should be alone right now. Of course. Where are you? I looked around, realizing I'd wandered into a park. Oakwood Park, near the fountain. I'll be there in 10 minutes, don't move. As I waited for Laura, I sat on a nearby bench, watching families stroll by. Children laughed and played, their parents smiling indulgently. It was a scene I'd always imagined for myself and Alex. Now that dream was shattered. Laura's car pulled up and she rushed over, enveloping me in a tight hug. Oh, honey, she murmured. As we drove back to my mother's house, Laura kept glancing at me worriedly. What are you going to do? I stared out the window, my mind racing. I don't know, but I can't let him get away with this. He doesn't get to destroy our marriage and start a new family like nothing happened. Laura's grip tightened on the steering wheel. What are you saying, Steph? I turned to her, a newfound determination in my voice. I'm saying it's time I fought back. Alex thinks he can have it all? Well, he's about to learn how wrong he is. As we pulled into my mother's driveway, I felt a shift within me. The pain and shock were still there, but now they were fuel for something else, a burning desire for justice. Alex had no idea what was coming his way. I stood in the doorway of our once pristine kitchen, surveying the chaos before me. Dirty dishes piled high in the sink, takeout containers littered the counters, and a thin layer of dust coated every surface. This wasn't the home I'd left in Alex's care when I'd thrown myself into my new promotion 6 months ago. Alex? I called out, my voice echoing through the eerily quiet house. No response. I checked my watch, 7:30 p.m. He should be home by now. As I moved through the house, the neglect became more apparent. Laundry baskets overflowed with unwashed clothes. Mail was scattered across the coffee table, and Alex's home office looked like it hadn't been touched in weeks. My phone buzzed. A text from Alex. Working late. Don't wait up. I felt a familiar twinge of disappointment, mixed with a new sense of suspicion. This wasn't the first time he'd sent such a message lately. Determined to salvage something of my evening, I rolled up my sleeves and started tackling the kitchen mess. As I scrubbed and sorted, my mind wandered to the early days of our marriage, when Alex had been so eager to take on the role of house husband. You focus on your career, Steph, he'd said. I'll take care of everything here. Those words rang hollow now as I wiped down counters and loaded the dishwasher. What had changed? As I reached for a stack of mail to organize, an unfamiliar envelope caught my eye. It was addressed to Alex with no return address. My heart raced as I held it, debating whether to open it. Before I could decide, my phone rang. It was Laura. Hey, Steph, how are things? I sighed, sinking into a kitchen chair. Not great, Laura. The house is a disaster. Alex is working late again, and I just found a suspicious letter. A letter? Laura's voice sharpened. What kind of letter? I don't know. I haven't opened it. Well, why the hell not? Laura demanded. Steph, you need to know what's going on. I hesitated, my fingers tracing the edge of the envelope. It feels wrong, like I'm invading his privacy, Laura scoffed. Privacy? Stephanie, wake up. Something's not right here. You need to protect yourself. Her words hit me like a splash of cold water. She was right. I'd been making excuses for Alex's behavior for too long. With trembling hands, I tore open the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a bank statement. As I scanned the document, my blood ran cold. Laura, I whispered, he's been moving money, large amounts, to an account I've never seen before. Oh, Steph, Laura's voice was filled with sympathy and anger. I think it's time you face facts. Alex is up to something, and it's not good. As the reality of the situation sank in, I felt a strange calm settle over me. You're right. I can't ignore this anymore. What are you going to do? I stood up, a plan already forming in my mind. First, I'm going to call a locksmith. Then I'm calling a lawyer. That's my girl, Laura said fiercely. Do you want me to come over? No, I replied, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. I need to handle this on my own. But thank you, Laura, for everything. As I ended the call, I looked around at the mess of our home, a perfect reflection of the mess our marriage had become. But amidst the chaos, I felt a spark of determination ignite within me. Alex thought he could neglect our home, our marriage, and now potentially steal from me. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. I picked up my phone again, this time dialing the locksmith. As it rang, I made a silent vow to myself. No more excuses, no more turning a blind eye. It was time to take control of my life again, starting right now. The locksmith answered, and I spoke with newfound resolve. Hello, I need to change the locks on my house. How soon can you get here? The sound of keys jingling in the lock jolted me awake. I glanced at the clock, 2:37 a.m. Alex was just getting home. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding, ready for the confrontation I'd been rehearsing all night. Stephanie? Alex's surprised voice carried from the hallway. Why are you still up? I stepped out of the bedroom, arms crossed. We need to talk, Alex. He stumbled slightly, the smell of alcohol wafting off him. Can it wait until morning? I'm tired. No, I said firmly. It can't. Alex sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Fine, what's so urgent? I took a deep breath. I know about the money, Alex, the secret account. What I don't know is why. Care to explain? His face paled, eyes darting nervously. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, I snapped, my patience finally snapping. I saw the bank statement. You've been moving large sums of money. Money we don't have, by the way. What's going on? Alex slumped against the wall, suddenly looking very small. I made some bad investments. I was trying to fix it before you found out. Bad investments? I echoed, disbelief coloring my voice. How bad? He wouldn't meet my eyes. We're in debt, Steph. A lot of debt. The room seemed to spin. How much? Almost everything, he whispered. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Everything? Our savings? The house? Alex nodded miserably. I'm so sorry, Stephanie. I thought I could turn it around. I never meant for this to happen. Rage bubbled up inside me. You never meant for it to happen? Just like you never meant to neglect our home? To start coming home at all hours, reeking of booze? That's not fair, Alex protested weakly. I've been under a lot of stress. I laughed bitterly. Stress? You want to talk about stress? I've been working myself to the bone to support us, coming home to a pigsty, and now I find out we're broke? Where the hell have you been, Alex? He flinched at my words. I've been trying to figure things out, to find a way to fix this. By drinking? By abandoning your responsibilities at home? I shook my head in disgust. I don't even recognize you anymore. Alex reached out, trying to take my hand. Please, Steph, we can work this out. I'll do better, I promise. I jerked away from his touch. No, Alex, I'm done with your promises. I want you out. His eyes widened in shock. What? You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life, I said, my voice cold. Pack a bag. You're leaving. Now. But where am I supposed to go? He asked, panic creeping into his voice. I don't care, I replied. Figure it out. You seem to be good at making decisions without consulting me. As Alex stumbled to the bedroom to pack, I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. How had we come to this? The man I'd married, the one who'd promised to support me and care for our home, was now a stranger, a liar and a thief. When Alex emerged with a hastily packed duffel bag, I stood, blocking his path to the door. Give me your keys, I demanded. He hesitated for a moment before dropping them into my outstretched hand. As he reached for the doorknob, he turned back to me, eyes pleading. Stephanie, please, don't do this. I love you. I felt a flicker of the old Alex, the man I'd fallen in love with, but I steeled myself against it. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. Goodbye, Alex. As the door closed behind him, I slid down to the floor, tears finally breaking free. The house felt impossibly empty, the silence deafening. But beneath the pain and betrayal, I felt something else stirring. A fierce determination. Alex had destroyed our life together, but I refused to let him destroy me. As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, I made a vow to myself. I would rebuild, stronger than ever. And Alex? He would learn that his actions had consequences. I reached for my phone, dialing a familiar number. Laura? It's me. I need your help. It's time to fight back. The doorbell's shrill ring pierced the quiet Saturday afternoon, startling me from my paperwork. I wasn't expecting anyone. As I approached the door, a sense of unease crept over me. I opened it to find a woman I'd never seen before. She was attractive, probably in her early 30s, with long auburn hair and piercing green eyes. Something about her seemed familiar, though I couldn't place it. "Can I help you?" I asked, my guard up. The woman's eyes were red-rimmed, as if she'd been crying. "Are you Stephanie, Alex's wife?" My heart skipped a beat. "Yes, I am. And you are?" She took a shaky breath. "I'm Margaret. I think we need to talk." The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Margaret, the woman from Alex's text messages, his pregnant mistress. I wanted to slam the door in her face, but curiosity won out. "Come in," I said, my voice cold. Margaret perched nervously on the edge of the sofa, wringing her hands. "I'm so sorry to show up like this, but I didn't know what else to do. Alex, he's been lying to me, to both of us." I laughed bitterly. "That doesn't surprise me. What did he tell you?" "He said you two were separated," Margaret whispered. "That you were filing for divorce. He told me he loved me, that we were going to start a family together." Each word was like a knife twisting in my chest. "Well, he lied. We're not separated, and I only found out about his infidelity recently, including your condition." Margaret's eyes widened. "You know about the baby?" I nodded, fighting back tears. "Alex told me, right before I kicked him out." "Oh God," Margaret moaned, burying her face in her hands. "I'm so sorry. I never would have if I'd known." As I watched her break down, my anger shifted. This woman wasn't my enemy. She was another victim of Alex's lies. "Margaret," I said gently, "how did you find out the truth?" She looked up, her mascara streaking down her cheeks. "I saw him with another woman. When I confronted him, he admitted there were others. I'm not the only one." The room seemed to spin. "Others? How many?" Margaret shrugged helplessly. "He didn't say exactly, but at least 3 that I know of. I felt like I might be sick. 3 other women, plus Margaret. How long had this been going on? How deep did Alex's web of lies go?" As if reading my thoughts, Margaret pulled out her phone. "I have proof, text messages, photos. I thought you should know." With trembling hands, I took the phone. As I scrolled through the evidence of Alex's betrayal, a cold fury settled over me. This wasn't just an affair. This was systematic deception on a scale I could barely comprehend. "Thank you for telling me," I said, handing back the phone. "What are you going to do now?" Margaret placed a protective hand over her stomach. "I don't know. I can't trust anything Alex told me. I feel so lost." In that moment, looking at this broken woman carrying my husband's child, I made a decision. "Listen, Margaret, what Alex did to us, it's unforgivable. But we don't have to go through this alone." She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we can help each other," I said, surprising myself with the conviction in my voice. "We can expose Alex for who he really is, make sure he can't do this to anyone else." Margaret nodded slowly. "You're right, but how?" I stood up, a plan already forming in my mind. "First, we need to find the other women. Then we're going to need a good lawyer." As Margaret left, armed with my contact information and a newfound sense of purpose, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger, betrayal, and grief warred within me. But there was something else too, a fierce determination. Alex had underestimated me. He thought he could play us all for fools, but he was about to learn a harsh lesson. I wasn't just his wife anymore. I was a woman scorned, with an army of allies, and we were coming for him. I picked up my phone, my fingers flying over the keys as I typed a message to Laura. "You're not going to believe what just happened. We need to talk. Now." The game had changed, and I was ready to fight. The manila envelope felt heavy in my hands as I sat in the private investigator's dimly lit office. My heart raced, knowing that inside were the answers I'd been seeking and dreading. "Mrs. Thompson," the investigator, a gruff man named Jack, began, "I want to prepare you. What's in that file? It's not pretty." I took a deep breath. "I'm ready." As I opened the envelope, photos spilled out onto the desk. My hands trembled as I picked them up one by one. Alex, my husband, in various compromising positions with not just Margaret, but 3 other women. "Their names are Sarah, Karen, and Emma," Jack explained, his voice oddly gentle. "All married, all deceived by your husband." I felt the bile rise in my throat. "How long?" Jack sighed. Based on our investigation, the affairs have been going on for at least 2 years, maybe longer. 2 years, the words echoed in my head. 2 years of lies, of betrayal, while I worked tirelessly to support us. There's more, Jack said, sliding a stack of financial documents towards me. We found evidence of significant financial fraud. Your husband has been embezzling money from your joint accounts and his mistresses. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the desk, trying to steady myself. How much? Hundreds of thousands, Jack replied. He's been living a double life, Mrs. Thompson, funding a lavish lifestyle with money he doesn't have. I thought of the debt Alex had confessed to, the bad investments he'd claimed. It had all been lies. What do I do now? I whispered, more to myself than to Jack. He leaned forward, his eyes serious. You have options. With this evidence, you could file for divorce, press charges for fraud, but there's something else you should consider. I looked up, meeting his gaze. What? These other women, they're victims too. If you go public with this, it could destroy their lives, their marriages. The weight of the situation crashed down on me. It wasn't just about me and Alex anymore. There were other families involved, other lives at stake. My phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Any news? The other women want to meet. I stood up abruptly. Thank you, Jack. I need to go. As I drove to Laura's house, where we'd agreed to meet, my mind raced. How could I face these women? What could I possibly say? Laura opened the door before I could knock, pulling me into a tight hug. Are you okay? She whispered. I shook my head, fighting back tears. No, but I have to do this. In Laura's living room, I found myself face to face with Margaret, Sarah, Karen, and Emma. The air was thick with tension and unspoken pain. I'm sure you're all wondering why I've asked you here, I began, my voice shaking. I've recently discovered the full extent of my husband Alex's activities. I laid out the evidence on the coffee table, the photos, the financial documents, the proof of Alex's elaborate web of lies. Gasps and sobs filled the room as each woman realized the depth of the deception. He told me I was the only one, Sarah whispered, her face pale. He promised to leave his wife for me, Emma added, her eyes filled with tears. As I watched these women, these strangers bound together by one man's betrayal, something shifted inside me. The anger and pain I'd been carrying transformed into a fierce determination. Ladies, I said, my voice stronger now, we have a choice to make. We can let Alex's actions destroy us, or we can fight back. Together. Karen looked up, a spark of hope in her eyes. What do you mean? I took a deep breath, the plan forming as I spoke. We pool our resources, our evidence. We go after him, legally, financially, publicly. We make sure he can never do this to anyone else again. The room fell silent as the women exchanged glances. Then slowly Margaret stood up. I'm in, she said firmly. One by one, the others nodded their agreement. As I looked around at this unlikely alliance, I felt a surge of strength. Alex had underestimated us all. He thought he could play us, use us, discard us. But he was about to learn a harsh lesson. We weren't just scorned women, we were a force to be reckoned with, and we were coming for him. The courtroom fell silent as I took the stand, my heart pounding. Alex sat at the defendant's table, his once charming smile replaced by a look of defeat. Our eyes met briefly, and I saw a flicker of the man I once loved, now a stranger. Mrs. Thompson, my lawyer began, can you tell the court about the events that led to this lawsuit? I took a deep breath, my voice steady as I recounted the tale of betrayal and deceit. The affairs, the financial fraud, the web of lies that had ensnared not just me but 4 other women and their families. As I spoke, I could feel the weight of the past months lifting from my shoulders. When I finished, the judge turned to Alex. Mr. Thompson, do you have anything to say in your defense? Alex stood, his shoulders slumped. I'm sorry. I never meant for things to go this far. I got caught up in the lies and I couldn't find a way out. His words, once so convincing, now rang hollow. I watched as the other women, Margaret, Sarah, Karen, and Emma, each took the stand, sharing their own stories of Alex's manipulation. Their husbands sat in the gallery, faces etched with pain and anger. As the judge delivered her verdict, I felt a surge of vindication. Alex was found guilty on all counts: fraud, embezzlement, and multiple breaches of contract. The sentence was harsh, significant jail time and full financial restitution to all parties involved. But the real blow came when the judge addressed Alex's parents. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson Sr., as co-signers on several of your son's fraudulent loans, You are legally obligated to cover a portion of the damages. I watched as Alex's parents, who had always treated me with thinly veiled disdain, crumbled under the weight of their son's actions. In that moment, I felt no joy, only a profound sadness for all the lives Alex had destroyed. As we left the courthouse, Laura squeezed my hand. "It's over, Steph. You did it." I nodded, tears pricking my eyes. We did it. All of us. The other women gathered around, a strange sisterhood forged in shared pain and triumph. Margaret, her hand resting on her swollen belly, smiled sadly. "What happens now?" "Now," I said, surprising myself with the strength in my voice, "we heal. We move forward." In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into rebuilding my life. I sold the house, too full of painful memories, and found a cozy apartment closer to work. The settlement from the lawsuit provided a cushion, but more importantly, it gave me the freedom to start fresh. One sunny afternoon, as I was unpacking boxes in my new place, my phone buzzed with a text from Laura. "Dinner tonight? The whole gang wants to celebrate your promotion." I smiled, realizing I hadn't told her yet. After years of hard work, I'd finally been named partner at my firm. It felt like a validation of everything I'd been through, a reminder that I was more than just Alex's wife or victim. As I got ready for dinner, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me was different from the one who had first discovered Alex's betrayal. Stronger, wiser, with a glint of hard-won confidence in her eyes. At the restaurant, I was greeted by a chorus of cheers. Laura, my mother, and even the other women, now friends, had gathered to celebrate. As we raised our glasses in a toast, I felt a warmth spread through my chest. "To new beginnings," Laura said, grinning. "And to the power of women standing together," Margaret added, winking at me. I lifted my glass, looking around at these incredible women who had become my support system, my family. "To resilience," I said, "and to writing our own happy endings." As laughter and conversation flowed around me, I realized that this moment of joy, of connection, was the real victory. Alex had tried to break me, to diminish me. Instead, he had inadvertently set me free. Free to discover my own strength, to forge new bonds, to become the woman I was always meant to be. The path ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited about the future. Whatever came next, I knew I could handle it. After all, I had survived the worst and come out stronger. This wasn't just an ending, it was a new beginning, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms.
I never thought a crumpled receipt would be the thing to unravel my entire life. But there it was, stuck in the pocket of my husband's jacket while I was doing our weekly dry cleaning drop-off. With a hastily scrawled note on the back that made my stomach drop, same place, 8 p.m. Don't tell R. My name is Riley, and up until that moment, I thought I had it all figured out. Jason and I had built our tech company from the ground up over the past 5 years, turning our shared dream into a thriving business with over 50 employees. We were that annoyingly perfect couple who worked together, lived together, and somehow hadn't killed each other yet. At least, that's what everyone said. I stood there in our walk-in closet, the jacket still in my hands, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The handwriting was feminine, delicate but rushed, like whoever wrote it was in a hurry. My first thought went to Olivia, our new marketing executive. She'd been spending a lot of time with Jason lately, working on our company's rebranding strategy. I'd told myself it was nothing, just professional collaboration, but there had been moments. "Hey, have you seen my blue tie?" Jason's voice made me jump. I shoved the receipt into my pocket just as he appeared in the doorway, already dressed for work in his crisp white shirt and dark slacks. "Which one?" I asked, proud of how steady my voice sounded. "You have about 20 blue ties." He laughed, that warm, familiar sound that usually made me smile. Now it just made my chest tight. "The navy one with the subtle pattern. I have that board meeting today, remember? Right here." I pulled it from the rack, my fingers brushing against his as I handed it over. Was I imagining the slight hesitation in his touch? "You're the best," he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. His cologne, usually comforting, suddenly felt suffocating. "Don't forget we have dinner with the Hendersons tonight." My heart skipped. Tonight. 8 p.m. Actually, I heard myself say, I might have to skip it. I promised Ethan I'd review the new software deployment plans, and you know how behind we are on that. Jason's expression flickered for just a moment, relief. That's okay, I can handle the Hendersons. They're more interested in the marketing side anyway. I watched him adjust his tie in the mirror, this man I'd known for 12 years, wondering how many other little lies had slipped past me unnoticed. He looked exactly the same as he had yesterday, but somehow everything was different. Have a good day, I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. As soon as I heard his car pull out of the driveway, I pulled out my phone and called Ethan. If anyone could help me make sense of this without jumping to conclusions, it would be him. He'd been with us since the beginning, our first hire and now our lead developer. Can you meet me for coffee? I asked when he picked up. There's something I need to talk about. Everything okay? His voice was concerned. Ethan had always been good at reading between the lines. I don't know, I admitted. I really don't know. After hanging up, I looked at the receipt again. The restaurant name at the top was familiar, an upscale place downtown where Jason and I used to celebrate our anniversaries. We hadn't been there in over a year. He'd said he was tired of it. Now I wondered if he'd just found someone else to go there with. I smoothed out the paper, studying the date. 2 weeks ago. The same night he'd told me he was working late on a crucial proposal. The same night Olivia had also stayed late at the office. Sometimes the worst part isn't the lie itself, it's realizing how many little pieces had to fall into place for you to finally see the truth. The coffee shop was crowded when I met Ethan, which was perfect. Nothing like the constant hum of espresso machines and stranger conversations to make sure no one overheard us. I'd chosen a corner table, my back to the wall, watching the door like I was expecting someone to burst in and catch us conspiring. You look like hell, Ethan said, sliding into the seat across from me. He wasn't wrong. I'd barely slept, spending most of the night scrolling through old photos on my phone, looking for signs I might have missed. Thanks for meeting me, I said, pushing a coffee toward him. I need your perspective on something, but I need you to be completely honest with me. Ethan's face grew serious. He'd always been good at reading the room. What's going on? I pulled out the receipt and slid it across the table. As he read it, his expression shifted from confusion to something darker. When did you find this? This morning. But that's not all. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Have you noticed anything different about Jason and Olivia lately? Ethan's hesitation told me everything. Riley. Just tell me. Please. He sighed, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. There have been meetings. Lots of them. Always just the two of them, usually after hours. I thought it was about the rebranding, but... Last week, I overheard something. I was working late, headphones on, you know how I get when I'm coding. They didn't see me in my corner. Olivia was talking about some kind of restructuring plan. Something about streamlining leadership. My coffee suddenly tasted like ash. Streamlining leadership? We're the founders. What's there to streamline? That's not all, Ethan said, his voice getting even lower. Yesterday, I saw them coming out of that new Italian place on 5th. You know, the one that just opened? They looked comfortable. Too comfortable. I remembered that restaurant. Jason had dismissed it when I suggested we try it, saying it was probably overrated. Now I knew why. There's a board meeting next week, I said, my mind racing. About the company's 5-year plan. Jason's been working on the presentation for weeks, but he won't let me see it. That's not normal, Ethan agreed. You've always done those presentations together. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Jason, working late tonight. Don't wait up. Another buzz. This time from Lisa in accounting. Hey Riley, quick question about these expense reports. There's some unusual activity in the marketing budget. Can we talk? I showed both messages to Ethan. His frown deepened. Riley, I think. I know, I cut him off. I need to see those expense reports. What are you going to do? I stood up, gathering my things. First, I'm going to talk to Lisa. Then, I'm going to find out exactly what's in that presentation for next week. Be careful, Ethan warned. If what we suspect is true. Then I need proof, I finished. And I need allies I can trust. As I headed for the door, I caught a glimpse of myself in the window reflection. I looked different somehow, harder, more determined. The woman who'd found that receipt this morning was already gone. Replaced by someone who understood that sometimes the people closest to you can be the ones you know the least. My phone buzzed again. Olivia this time, great news about the rebranding. Can't wait to show you what Jason and I have been working on. You're going to be amazed. I bet I will, I thought, deleting the message. The game was on, but they didn't know I was playing yet. And that was exactly how I wanted it. Walking to my car, I made a mental note to check the security footage from last week's late nights at the office. If Jason and Olivia wanted to play with fire, they were about to learn that I knew how to start a few fires of my own. Lisa's hands shook as she spread the financial documents across my desk. Outside my office, the usual buzz of our tech startup hummed along, but in here, the air felt thick with tension. I noticed it last week, she said, pointing to a series of transactions. These consulting fees, they're being processed through a shell company. At first, I thought it was just creative accounting, but... She slid another paper forward. The company was registered 3 months ago. By Olivia. My stomach clenched as I studied the numbers. Nearly $500,000, funneled through this fake consulting firm over the past quarter. Money that should have gone into our development team's budget. There's more, Lisa continued, her voice barely above a whisper. Jason signed off on all of these. But they bypassed your approval completely. A knock at my door made us both jump. Jason stood there, all perfect smile and expensive suit. Hey, what's going on in here? Looks serious. Just reviewing some quarterly reports, I said, casually sliding the papers into a folder. Lisa's helping me prepare for next week's board meeting. Oh, don't worry about that, Jason waved his hand dismissively. Olivia and I have got it covered. Actually, Lisa, could you give us a minute? Lisa shot me a worried glance as she left. I nodded slightly, our silent agreement to talk later. You seem stressed, Jason said, perching on the edge of my desk like he used to do when we first started the company. Everything okay? Funny you should ask. I pulled out one of the transaction records. Want to tell me about Mitchell Global Consulting? His face didn't change, but his fingers twitched, a tell I'd learned to recognize years ago when he was bluffing at poker. It's part of the rebranding strategy. We needed outside perspective. Outside perspective from a company Olivia created? Now his smile faltered. You've been digging. I've been doing my job, I corrected him. The job you've been trying to push me out of. That's ridiculous, he scoffed, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. You're being paranoid. Am I? Then let me see the board presentation. It's not ready yet. Jason, I swear to God. His phone buzzed. I caught a glimpse of the screen, Olivia's name. He quickly turned it face down. I need to take this, he said, standing. We'll talk later, okay? You're working yourself up over nothing. As he reached the door, I called out, I remember when you used to be terrible at lying. He paused for a fraction of a second but didn't turn around. After he left, I sat there staring at the numbers until they blurred. My phone lit up with a message from Ethan, security footage from last week. You need to see this. 10 minutes later, I was in Ethan's office, watching grainy footage of Jason and Olivia in the conference room late at night. They were huddled over laptops, but it wasn't their proximity that made my blood run cold, it was what I could read on their screens. "They're transferring company assets," Ethan explained quietly. "Creating a new entity. Look at the date, it's set to launch right after the board meeting." "They're going to try to force me out," I said, the reality finally hitting me. "They've probably already gotten to the board members." "What are you going to do?" I thought about the last 12 years building this company from nothing, the late nights, the risks we took together. I thought about the way Jason used to look at me across our first tiny office, both of us running on coffee and dreams. "I'm going to burn it all down," I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt. "But first, I need you to help me copy every file, every email, every transaction record. If they want to play dirty, they're about to learn they're not the only ones who know how." As I walked back to my office, I passed Olivia in the hallway. She gave me that perfect, practiced smile of hers. "Everything okay, Riley? You look upset." I smiled back, channeling every ounce of Jason's newfound talent for lying. "Never better. Actually, I'd love your input on something. Got a minute?" Sometimes the best revenge starts with making your enemy think they've already won. The board meeting was in 2 days, and I couldn't sleep. I sat in our home office at 3 a.m., surrounded by printouts of emails and financial records, when I heard the garage door open. Jason wasn't supposed to be home for hours, another late meeting with Olivia. I quickly gathered the papers and slipped them into my laptop bag, just as his footsteps approached. He stopped in the doorway, loosening his tie. The smell of expensive whiskey followed him in. "You're up late," he said, trying to sound casual but slurring slightly. "Couldn't sleep." "How was the meeting?" "Productive." He walked to the desk, picking up a framed photo of us from our company launch party. "Remember this? How scared we were. I remember you believed in me back then." His hand tightened on the frame. "I still believe in the company." "That's not what I said." The silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. He set the photo down, face down. "I got a call from Marcus today," I said, watching his reaction carefully. Marcus was our biggest investor and Jason's college roommate. He seemed surprised when I mentioned the board meeting. Jason's shoulders tensed. "Why were you talking to Marcus?" "Because he's my friend too. Or at least, I thought he was." I stood up, forcing myself to stay calm. "He told me about the private equity offer. The one you and Olivia have been negotiating behind my back." "Riley. Don't." I held up my hand. "Just tell me one thing. Was it your idea to push me out, or hers?" He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it hurt. "It's not like that. The company needs to evolve. You're too emotional about everything. Too invested in the old ways." "The old ways?" I laughed, but it came out hollow. "You mean like honesty? Loyalty?" My phone buzzed, a text from Ethan, files copied. "Found something big. Need to meet now." "I'm trying to protect what we built," Jason said, stepping closer. "You're not seeing the bigger picture." "No, I'm finally seeing it clearly." I grabbed my laptop bag. "I'm going out." "At this hour? Where?" "You lost the right to ask me that question when you started having secret meetings with Olivia." His face darkened. "You're being ridiculous. Olivia understands what this company needs. To become?" "Yeah, I bet she does." I headed for the door, then stopped. "By the way, that whiskey on your breath? It's the same brand I smelled on her at the office today." I left him standing there, drove straight to Ethan's place. He was waiting outside, pacing. "Look at this," he said as soon as I walked up, shoving his tablet at me. "I found it buried in the server logs." They've been planning this for months. The email chain showed everything: the private equity deal, the plans to dilute my shares, the carefully orchestrated campaign to discredit my leadership style to the board. But what made my blood run cold was the last email, sent just hours ago. "Tomorrow's meeting isn't about the 5-year plan," I whispered. "It's a vote to remove me as CEO." "There's more," Ethan said quietly. "Lisa did some digging. That consulting company? It's not just Olivia. Jason's name is on the incorporation papers too. They've been siphoning company funds to set up their own venture." I sat down hard on Ethan's front steps, the betrayal finally hitting me full force. All those nights he said he was working late. They were building their escape plan. Ethan sat beside me. "The question is, what's yours?" I pulled out my phone, looking at the photo of Jason and me that was still my background. With steady fingers, I deleted it. "Call Lisa," I said. "And get me everything you have on their new venture. If they want to play corporate raiders, let's show them how it's really done." The sun was starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of revenge. I found Olivia alone in the conference room, rehearsing her presentation for tomorrow's board meeting. The same room where, according to the security footage, she and Jason had plotted to destroy everything I'd built. "Working late?" I asked, closing the door behind me. She startled, then recovered with that practiced smile. "Really? I was just polishing some numbers for tomorrow." "Interesting numbers," I said, sliding a folder across the table. "Like the ones showing how you and Jason embezzled nearly $1 million through your fake consulting firm?" The smile flickered but didn't fade. "I was wondering when you'd figure it out." "That's it? No denial?" She leaned back, studying me with something like pity. "You know what your problem is, Riley? You think running a company is about following rules and being fair. It's not. It's about seeing opportunities and taking them. Like sleeping with my husband?" Now the smile vanished completely. Jason was looking for an exit strategy long before I came along. He's tired of living in your shadow, playing the supportive spouse while you get all the credit. My hands shook as I pulled out another document. "And this? The private equity deal that would push me out? Was that his idea too?" "Actually, that was mine." She stood up, gathering her papers. "Jason's too sentimental. He wanted to buy you out, give you a golden parachute. I convinced him that wasn't necessary." The casual cruelty in her voice made my blood boil. "Why are you telling me all this?" "Because it doesn't matter anymore. By this time tomorrow, the board will have voted you out. The deal will go through, and your precious company will become exactly what it should have been all along: a real player in the market. Not some idealistic tech experiment." I thought about Jason's words from last night. Too emotional. Too invested in the old ways. "You really think you've won, don't you?" Something in my tone made her pause. "What did you do?" "I made a few calls this morning. To the SEC, for starters. Those creative accounting tricks you used? They're called fraud in the real world. Oh, and Marcus's, you remember him, right? Our biggest investor? He was very interested in those incorporation papers showing how you and Jason planned to compete directly with our company using stolen intellectual property." The color drained from her face. "You're bluffing." My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan: "It's done. Email sent to all board members." "Check your inbox," I said quietly. I just CC'd the entire board on every document, every email, every piece of evidence showing what you and Jason really had planned. Including that interesting conversation you had last week about how you'd phase me out after the merger. She grabbed her phone, fingers flying over the screen. I watched as realization dawned in her eyes. "You've just destroyed everything," she whispered. "The deal, the company?" "No," I cut her off. "You did that. You and Jason. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth. The door opened and Jason burst in, face ashen. Riley, what have you done? What you taught me to do, I replied, gathering my things. Take opportunities. The board's calling an emergency meeting, he said, his voice cracking. Marcus is threatening legal action. Good. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Olivia? That consulting company you set up? You might want to check who owns controlling interest now. Lisa's quite good at corporate takeovers when she puts her mind to it. I left them there, standing amid the ruins of their schemes. Outside, Ethan was waiting by my car. You okay? He asked. I looked up at the building where I'd spent the last 5 years of my life. Where I'd trusted the wrong people and learned the hard way that love wasn't enough. No, I admitted. But I will be. Did everyone get the new company details? He nodded. Half the dev team's already signed on. Lisa's bringing most of finance. Even Marcus wants in, says he'd rather back you than deal with the fallout here. Then let's go build something better. As we drove away, my phone lit up with Jason's face. I declined the call and deleted his number. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Some are meant to burn. The emergency board meeting felt like a funeral. I sat at the far end of the conference table, watching 12 years of my life unravel in PowerPoint slides and uncomfortable silences. Jason stood at the front, desperately trying to salvage what was left of his reputation. These allegations are being taken out of context, he insisted, his perfect composure finally cracking. Riley's emotional response to company restructuring has led to. Emotional response? Marcus interrupted, waving his tablet. I'm looking at bank statements showing systematic fraud. This isn't about emotions, Jason. It's about criminal behavior. I watched Olivia shrink in her chair as the board members turned to glare at her. She wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. We should discuss the private equity offer, Jason tried again. The potential for growth is gone, another board member cut in. The firm pulled out an hour ago. Something about not wanting to be associated with potential SEC violations. The room erupted in angry murmurs. I should have felt triumphant, but all I felt was hollow. Empty. Like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left just enough to keep breathing. Riley. Marcus's voice snapped me back to attention. As the co-founder and CEO, what do you propose? Before I could answer, the door burst open. A woman in a dark suit strode in, flanked by 2 men carrying briefcases. Actually, she announced, I'm afraid any decisions will have to wait. I'm Sarah Chin from the SEC's Enforcement Division. We're here to seize company records and electronic devices. The room exploded into chaos. Board members jumped up, lawyers appeared out of nowhere, and through it all, I caught Jason's eye across the table. For a moment, I saw the man I'd fallen in love with, scared, vulnerable, human. Then his mask slipped back into place. Riley, he said quietly, while everyone else was distracted. I never meant. Don't. My voice cracked. Just don't. You've destroyed everything, Olivia hissed from beside him. They're talking about criminal charges. Are you happy now? I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. You want to know what makes me happy, Olivia? Watching you realize that all your scheming, all your manipulation, led you right here. To this moment. Where you lose everything. Mrs. Thompson, the SEC agent called out. We'll need to speak with you as well. Of course. I gathered my things, aware of every eye in the room on me. But first, I have an announcement to make. The room quieted. Even the SEC agents paused. I'm resigning, effective immediately. But before I go, you should know that half your development team and most of your key personnel have already accepted positions at my new company. And those clients you thought were locked in? They're coming with me too. You can't do that, Jason protested. The non-compete agreements were voided the moment you committed fraud, Marcus finished for me. She can do whatever she wants. I headed for the door, then turned back one last time. Oh, and Jason? I'm keeping the house. You can stay with Olivia in that overpriced condo you bought with company money. I'm sure the SEC will be very interested in that transaction. In the elevator, my hands finally started shaking. Ethan was waiting in the lobby, concern etched on his face. Lisa just called, he said. The SEC is at her place too. This is bigger than we thought. How many of our people are being questioned? Most of the senior staff. They're saying this investigation could take months. I leaned against the wall, the weight of what I'd done finally hitting me. I'd brought down the company I'd built, triggered a federal investigation, and potentially ruined dozens of careers, all to get revenge on two people who'd betrayed me. Did I go too far? I whispered. Ethan squeezed my shoulder. You did what you had to do. The question is, what do we do now? My phone buzzed, a message from Marcus. Board wants to freeze all assets pending investigation, including your personal accounts. You have an hour. I straightened up, wiping my eyes. Now? We survive. Then we rebuild. But first, we need to make sure everyone who stood by us doesn't go down with this ship. Sometimes victory feels an awful lot like losing everything. 3 months after the SEC investigation began, I stood in an empty warehouse space, surrounded by the remnants of my old life. Folding tables lined with laptops. Extension cords snaking across concrete floors. 20 of our best people, working on borrowed equipment, building something new from the ashes of what we'd lost. The server test results look promising, Lisa said, bringing me coffee in a paper cup. We could be ready for the beta launch next week. Before I could respond, Ethan burst through the door. Riley, you need to see this. He pulled up a news article on his phone. The headline made my stomach drop. Tech startup founders face criminal charges in fraud case. Jason's been arrested, Ethan said quietly. Olivia too. They're saying she tried to flee the country last night. A strange laugh bubbled up in my throat. Where was she going? Bali. Apparently, that's where they'd been funneling most of the money. The warehouse door opened again. Marcus walked in, looking grimmer than I'd ever seen him. You shouldn't be here, I said. Your lawyers. My lawyers can deal with the SEC. He surveyed our makeshift office. Impressive setup for 3 months' work. What do you want, Marcus? To invest. He pulled out a folder. Your old company's imploding. Clients are jumping ship. But you've got the talent, the vision, and most importantly, the loyalty of the people who matter. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Jason's lawyer. Mrs. Thompson? Jason would like to meet. He's prepared to offer you a deal. I looked around at my team, my real team, all pretending not to listen while typing furiously at their computers. Where? An hour later, I walked into the visiting room of the county jail. Jason sat there in an orange jumpsuit, looking smaller somehow. Less polished. More real. You look good, he said. You look terrible. He laughed, but it was hollow. Olivia rolled on me. Told them everything in exchange for immunity. Of course she did. I can do the same to her. His eyes took on that familiar calculating look. But I need your help. If you testify that you knew about the offshore accounts, that it was all her idea. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about deals or leverage or winning. It's about consequences. Riley, please. I'm facing 20 years. And I faced losing everything I built. Everything we built together. But you know what I realized? I leaned forward. Sometimes losing everything is just life's way of showing you what you never had in the first place. What does that mean? It means I'm not here to help you. I'm here to tell you that Marcus is backing my new company. We're launching next week. And those clients you and Olivia thought would never leave? They're already signing contracts. His face darkened. You planned this. All of it. No, Jason. You planned this. Every betrayal, every lie, every time you chose ambition over loyalty, you built this path yourself. I just decided not to follow you down it. I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in months. Goodbye, Jason. Wait, he called as I reached the door. What am I supposed to do now? That's not my problem anymore. Back at the warehouse, my team was waiting. Lisa had ordered pizza. Ethan had somehow acquired a whiteboard and was mapping out our launch strategy. Everything okay? He asked quietly. I looked at the chaos around us, the makeshift desks, the determined faces, the future we were building from scratch. You know what? I smiled. For the first time in a long time, I think it really is. Marcus raised his coffee cup. To Phoenix Rising? No, I corrected him, picking up my own cup. To burning bridges and building better ones. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying what hurt you. It's about creating something stronger from the wreckage. 1 year later, I stood in our new office, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of gold. Phoenix Rising had just closed its biggest deal yet, ironically, with one of Jason's former clients. The same ones he and Olivia had been so sure would never leave them. Champagne delivery. Lisa called out, wheeling in a cart loaded with bottles. Our team gathered around, no longer working from folding tables but proper desks in a real office. Faces that had stuck with me through the darkness now glowed with success. Speech, someone called out. Probably Ethan, the traitor. I raised my glass, searching for words. A year ago, we were working out of a warehouse with borrowed equipment and blind faith. Today, I gestured to our surroundings, the sleek office space humming with energy and possibility. To blind faith. Lisa cheered. And borrowed equipment, Ethan added with a grin. My phone buzzed, a news alert. Jason's sentencing had finally come through. 5 years, with possibility of parole. Olivia had gotten 18 months in a minimum security facility, her immunity deal working in her favor. Everything okay? Ethan asked quietly, noticing my expression. Yeah, I said, surprised to find I meant it. Just ghosts. Later, after the celebration wound down, I found myself alone in my office, looking at an email I'd been avoiding all day. From Jason's personal account, not the prison system's. I know I have no right to contact you, it began. But I've had a lot of time to think. About what I lost. What I threw away. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know that watching you succeed, watching you build something better from the ashes of what I destroyed, it's taught me more than any prison sentence could. I closed the email without responding. Some bridges stay burned for a reason. A knock at my door pulled me from my thoughts. Marcus stood there, looking amused. You do know we're celebrating, right? Just finishing something up. He studied me for a moment. You saw the sentencing news? And an email from Jason. Oh. He sat down across from me. You know, when you first came to me with evidence of their fraud, I thought you were motivated by revenge. But I was wrong, wasn't I? What do you mean? This was never about destroying them. It was about proving something to yourself. I looked out at our office, at the team still chatting and laughing together. I spent so long thinking I needed Jason's vision, his ambition. I forgot I had my own. Speaking of vision, Marcus pulled out a folder. The boards approved the expansion. We can start hiring next month. I smiled, thinking of the warehouse where we'd started. Think we should keep some folding tables? You know, to stay humble? I think your humility's safe. He stood to leave, then paused. Oh, and Riley? Olivia's lawyer reached out. She wants to make a deal, trade information about Jason's offshore accounts for a reduced sentence. What did you tell them? That we'll let Karma handle it. After he left, I walked through our quiet office, touching the desks, the walls, the tangible proof of what we'd built from nothing. My phone buzzed again, another email from Jason. I deleted it without reading it. Some people spend their whole lives looking for redemption. Others learn to build something new instead. I gathered my things, ready to head home. On my desk, someone had left a small wrapped package. Inside was a piece of the old warehouse's concrete floor, mounted like a trophy. A note from Lisa read, "Sometimes you need to keep a piece of where you started to appreciate how far you've come." I placed it on my windowsill, where the setting sun turned the rough concrete to gold. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. And sometimes, the bridges we burn light the way forward.
The lipstick smudge on Alex's collar glared at me like a neon sign, screaming infidelity. I held my breath, fingers trembling as I lifted the crisp, white shirt from the laundry basket. How many times had I washed away the evidence without realizing it? "Emma, where are you?" Alex's voice boomed from downstairs, snapping me back to reality. I quickly shoved the shirt back into the basket and plastered on a smile. "Coming, honey!" As I descended the stairs, my mind raced. How long had this been going on? Was I just being paranoid? Alex stood at the bottom, keys jingling impatiently in his hand. "There you are. I'm heading out for a bit. Don't wait up." "Wait, Alex," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I thought we were having dinner together tonight. I made your favorite." He cut me off with a wave of his hand. "Something came up at work. We'll do it another time. But it's our anniversary," I whispered, the words barely audible. Alex paused, his hand on the doorknob. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I married 15 years ago. Then, just as quickly, his face hardened. "Oh, right. Sorry, Em. I completely forgot. We'll celebrate this weekend." "Okay?" I could respond. He was gone, leaving me alone with the echo of the slamming door. I sank onto the bottom step, my head in my hands. When had everything gone so wrong? We used to be happy, didn't we? The phone rang, startling me out of my spiral. I answered without checking the caller ID. "Emma, it's Peter. I hope I'm not interrupting anything." Peter, my old friend from college. His warm voice was a balm to my frayed nerves. "No, not at all," I said, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. "How are you?" "I'm good. Listen, I'm in town for a few days. I was wondering if you'd like to grab coffee, catch up a bit?" I hesitated. Alex wouldn't like it if I met up with another man, even an old friend. But then again, Alex wasn't here, was he? You know what? That sounds great. When were you thinking? We made plans to meet the next afternoon at a little cafe downtown. As I hung up, I felt a tiny spark of excitement. It had been so long since I'd done anything for myself. The next day, I found myself sitting across from Peter, clutching a steaming latte. He looked good, a few more lines around his eyes perhaps, but still with that boyish grin I remembered. "So, Emma," he said, leaning forward, "and how's life treating you?" I opened my mouth to give my usual response. "Fine, everything's great." But something stopped me. Maybe it was the genuine concern in Peter's eyes, or maybe I was just tired of pretending. "Honestly, not great," I admitted. "Alex and we're having some problems." Peter's brow furrowed. "I'm sorry to hear that. Do you want to talk about it?" And suddenly, the floodgates opened. I told him everything. The emotional distance, the forgotten anniversaries, the lipstick on the collar. Peter listened without judgment, occasionally reaching out to squeeze my hand comfortingly. As I finished my story, wiping away a stray tear, Peter's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "I'm so sorry, Emma. I have to take this. Work emergency. But listen, why don't we meet again tomorrow? Same time, same place?" I nodded, grateful for his understanding. As Peter hurried away, I felt lighter than I had in months. Maybe talking about my problems wasn't such a bad idea after all. Just then, my own phone chimed with a text. It was from Alex. "Working late again. Don't wait up. I stared at the message, a familiar ache settling in my chest. But this time, instead of resignation, I felt something else stirring, determination. Things couldn't go on like this. Something had to change. As I left the cafe, I made a decision. Tomorrow, I would confront Alex. One way or another, I would get answers. And then, well, then we'd see what happened next. I paced the living room, rehearsing the speech I'd prepared for Alex. My stomach churned with a mix of anxiety and determination. The front door clicked open, and I froze. "Emma?" Alex called out, his voice oddly cheerful. "You still up?" I stepped into the hallway, arms crossed. "We need to talk, Alex." His smile faltered. "Can it wait? I'm beat." "No," I said firmly, "it can't." We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the air thick with tension. I took a deep breath and launched into my prepared speech. "Alex, I know something's wrong. You're distant, you're never home, and yesterday, I found lipstick on your collar." His face remained impassive. "It's not what you think, Emma." "Then what is it?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're having an affair." Alex sighed, rubbing his temples. "I'm not having an affair, Emma, but I think we both know this marriage isn't working anymore." His words hit me like a physical blow. I'd expected denial, maybe even anger, but this calm admission of failure? It was worse than I'd imagined. "So that's it?" I whispered. "And you're just giving up?" "I'm being realistic," he countered. "We've been drifting apart for years. Maybe it's time we—" A wave of nausea suddenly washed over me. I bolted from the table, barely making it to the bathroom before emptying the contents of my stomach. As I rinsed my mouth, a thought struck me. When was my last period? With shaking hands, I counted back the days on my phone's calendar. "Oh my God," I breathed. I emerged from the bathroom to find Alex waiting, a look of concern on his face that I hadn't seen in months. "Emma, are you okay?" I met his eyes, my heart pounding. I think I might be pregnant." The silence that followed was deafening. Alex's face went through a range of emotions, shock, disbelief, and finally, something that looked unsettlingly like disappointment. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice strained. I shook my head. "Not completely. I need to take a test." Alex nodded, already reaching for his keys. "I'll go to the pharmacy." As he left, I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. A baby. Could this be the thing that saved our marriage? Or was it too late? My phone buzzed with a text. It was Peter. "Hope everything's okay. Here if you need to talk." I stared at the message, guilt gnawing at me. I hadn't told Alex about meeting Peter. It hadn't seemed important at the time, but now... The front door opened, and Alex returned with a small paper bag. We sat in tense silence as I took the test, then waited for the results. Those 3 minutes felt like an eternity. When the timer on my phone chimed, I looked at Alex. "Together?" I asked. He nodded, following me into the bathroom. I picked up the test with trembling fingers and turned it over. 2 pink lines stared back at us. "It's positive," I whispered, a mix of joy and fear washing over me. I turned to Alex, expecting, what? Excitement? Happiness? Instead, I saw resignation in his eyes. "Emma," he said softly, "a baby isn't going to fix us." His words cut deep, shattering the fragile hope I'd been clinging to. I stepped back, wrapping my arms protectively around my midsection. "So what are you saying?" I asked, though I feared I already knew the answer. Alex ran a hand through his hair, looking everywhere but at me. I think we need some time apart to figure things out." I felt the world tilting beneath my feet. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not when everything was about to change. "You're leaving?" I choked out. "Now?" He nodded, his expression a mask of forced calm. "I'll stay with a friend for a while. We both need space to think." As Alex packed a bag, I stood in the doorway, watching the life I thought I knew crumble around me. When he finally left, the silence in the house was oppressive. I picked up my phone, my vision blurry with unshed tears. Without thinking, I dialed Peter's number. "Emma?" His concerned voice came through. "What's wrong?" I took a shaky breath. "Peter, I need you." Peter arrived within 20 minutes, his face etched with concern. I collapsed into his arms, the dam of emotions finally breaking. "He left, Peter," I sobbed. Alex left. Peter guided me to the couch, his arm around my shoulders. "Start from the beginning, Emma. What happened?" Through hiccuping breaths, I recounted the evening's events. The confrontation, the pregnancy test, Alex's cold reaction. Peter listened intently, his jaw tightening as I spoke. "I'm so sorry, Emma." He said softly when I finished, "You don't deserve this." I wiped my eyes, suddenly aware of how close we were sitting. "I don't know what to do, Peter. I'm pregnant, and my husband just walked out on me." Peter took my hand, his touch warm and comforting. "You're not alone, Emma. I'm here for you, whatever you need." Our eyes met, and for a moment I felt a spark of something I hadn't experienced in years. But before I could dwell on it, my phone buzzed. It was Alex. "I need to talk to you," his message read. "Can you meet me at the cafe tomorrow at noon?" I showed Peter the message, my stomach churning with anxiety. "You don't have to go," Peter said, his voice tight. "I do," I replied. "I need answers." The next day I arrived at the cafe 5 minutes early, my nerves on edge. Alex was already there, looking haggard and sleep-deprived. "Emma," he said as I sat down, "thanks for coming." I cut straight to the chase. "Why did you leave, Alex? Is there someone else?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "No, there's no one else, but Emma, I can't do this anymore. The pregnancy, it just made me realize how trapped I feel." His words hit me like a slap. "Trapped? We're having a baby, Alex. This should be the happiest moment of our lives." "I don't want kids, Emma," he said flatly. "I never have. I thought you knew that." I stared at him, speechless. How could I have missed something so fundamental about the man I married? "So what now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Alex reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded document. "I think we should get a divorce." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "Divorce? Just like that?" "It's for the best," he said, pushing the papers towards me. "I've already signed. Take some time to look it over." I stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over my chair. "You don't get to decide what's best for me or this baby, Alex. I thought our marriage meant something to you." "Emma, please?" But I was already walking away, tears blurring my vision. I stumbled out of the cafe, gasping for air. Suddenly, a strong hand steadied me. I looked up to see Peter, concern etched on his face. "I'm sorry," he said. "I couldn't let you face this alone. I waited outside, just in case." Without thinking, I threw my arms around him, burying my face in his chest. He held me tightly, murmuring soothing words. When I finally pulled back, I saw something in Peter's eyes that both thrilled and terrified me. "Emma," he said softly, "I know this isn't the right time, but I need to tell you something. I've been in love with you since college. Seeing you with Alex all these years, it's been torture." I stared at him, my mind reeling. "Peter, But before I could finish, a wave of dizziness washed over me. The world tilted, and I felt myself falling. The last thing I heard was Peter's panicked voice calling my name as everything faded to black. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed, the steady beep of monitors filling the room. Peter sat beside me, his face pale with worry. "What happened?" I croaked. Peter squeezed my hand. "You fainted. The doctors, Emma, they found something during the ultrasound." My heart raced. "The baby?" He shook his head, his eyes brimming with tears. "It's not a baby, Emma. They found a tumor on your ovary." The world seemed to stop. In that moment, faced with a failing marriage, an unexpected confession of love, and now this devastating news, I realized my life would never be the same again. The stark white walls of the hospital room seemed to close in on me as I tried to process the doctor's words. A tumor, not a baby. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. "Miss Thompson," Dr. Patel said gently, "I know this is a lot to take in, but we need to discuss your options." I nodded numbly, grateful for Peter's steady presence beside me. His hand in mine was an anchor in the storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. "The tumor is sizable, but we caught it early," Dr. Patel continued. "With immediate treatment, your prognosis is good. However," I tensed, bracing myself for more bad news, "the treatment will likely affect your fertility. If you want to preserve the option of having children in the future, we need to act quickly." My mind reeled. Children. The future. Just days ago, I thought I was pregnant, and now... "I need some time," I whispered. Dr. Patel nodded sympathetically. "Of course, but please don't take too long. Time is of the essence." As she left, Peter turned to me, his eyes brimming with concern. "Emma, I'm here for you. Whatever you decide, I'll support you." His words, meant to comfort, only served to remind me of the complexity of our situation. Peter's confession of love hung between us unaddressed in the wake of my diagnosis. "I need to talk to Alex," I said suddenly. Peter's face fell, but he nodded. "Of course. Do you want me to call him?" I shook my head. "No, I need to do this myself." With trembling fingers, I dialed Alex's number. He answered on the third ring. Emma? What's wrong? I took a deep breath. Alex, I'm in the hospital. It's not a baby. It's a tumor. The silence on the other end was deafening. Finally, Alex spoke, his voice uncharacteristically soft. I'm so sorry, Emma. Do you want me to come? No, I said quickly. I needed you to know. And Alex, I'm signing the divorce papers. I ended the call before he could respond, a weight lifting from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt like I was taking control of my life. Peter watched me carefully. Are you okay? I managed a small smile. No, but I will be. The next few days passed in a blur of tests, consultations, and difficult decisions. I opted for fertility preservation before starting treatment, clinging to the hope of a future I wasn't sure I'd have. On the day of my surgery, I found myself sharing a room with an elderly woman named Margaret. She had a kind face and a no-nonsense attitude that I immediately appreciated. First time? She asked, as I nervously fiddled with my hospital gown. I nodded. You'll be fine, dear, she said confidently. I've been through this rodeo 3 times now. The trick is to focus on what you're fighting for. Her words struck a chord. What was I fighting for? As if on cue, Peter appeared in the doorway, his arms full of flowers. Ready for this? He asked, his smile not quite hiding his worry. Looking at him, I suddenly knew the answer to Margaret's implied question. I was fighting for a second chance, at life, at love, at happiness. I'm ready, I said, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. As the nurses came to wheel me to surgery, I caught Peter's hand. Peter, when this is over, I think we need to talk about us. His eyes widened, hope flickering across his face. Us? I nodded, squeezing his hand. Us. As they rolled me away, I caught a glimpse of Margaret giving me a knowing wink. For the first time since this ordeal began, I felt a glimmer of hope for the future. The last thing I remember before the anesthesia took hold was Peter's voice, soft and sure. I'll be here when you wake up, Emma. I promise. And in that moment, facing the unknown, I made a promise to myself. Whatever happened, I would fight. For my life, for love, for the future I suddenly realized I desperately wanted. With Peter, with a family of our own. As I drifted off, I felt stronger than I had in years. The road ahead would be tough, but I was ready to face whatever came next, head on and heart open. 5 years. It's hard to believe how much can change in such a short time. As I stand in our sun-drenched kitchen, watching Peter flip pancakes while our 4-year-old daughter Jackie giggles at the table, I'm struck by a wave of gratitude so intense it nearly brings me to my tears. Mommy, look! Daddy made a Mickey Mouse pancake! Jackie exclaims, her blue eyes, so like Peter's, sparkling with delight. I ruffle her curly hair, marveling at how perfectly she blends our features. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Daddy's quite the artist, isn't he? Peter winks at me over his shoulder, and my heart swells. After everything we've been through, my cancer, the grueling treatments, the uncertain future, here we are, living a life I once thought impossible. So, what's the plan for today? Peter asks, sliding a plate of pancakes in front of me. Well, I have that follow-up appointment at the hospital, I remind him, trying to keep my voice light. Even after 5 years of clean scans, these checkups still fill me with anxiety. Peter's hand finds mine across the table, squeezing gently. Want me to come with you? I shake my head. No, you have that big presentation today. I'll be fine. But as I sit in the sterile waiting room 2 hours later, I'm not so sure. The familiar fear creeps in, whispering worst-case scenarios. What if the cancer's back? What if this time we're not so lucky? Emma Thompson. A nurse calls, jolting me from my spiraling thoughts. Dr. Patel greets me with a warm smile, but there's something in her eyes that sets my nerves on edge. How are you feeling, Emma? She asks as I settle into the chair across from her desk. Good, I say, perhaps a bit too quickly. Great, actually. She nods, her expression turning serious. Emma, I've looked over your latest scans, and there's something we need to discuss. My heart plummets. This can't be happening. Not now. Not when everything is finally perfect. We've detected a small mass on your remaining ovary, Dr. Patel says gently. The world seems to tilt on its axis. Is it? I can't bring myself to say the word. We won't know for certain until we do a biopsy, she explains. But given your history, we need to take this seriously. I nod numbly, barely hearing as she outlines the next steps. All I can think about is Peter and Jackie. How will I tell them? How can I put them through this again? As I leave the hospital, my phone buzzes with a text from Peter. How'd it go? Everything okay? I stare at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keys. I should tell him. He deserves to know, but the thought of seeing the worry in his eyes, of watching our perfect life crumble again, I can't bear it. All clear, I type back, hating myself for the lie even as I hit send. See you at home. Love you. The guilt gnaws at me as I drive home, warring with the fear that threatens to overwhelm me. I know I should be honest, should lean on Peter's strength like I did before, but a small, selfish part of me wants to protect this happiness we've built, even if just for a little while longer. As I pull into our driveway, I see Jackie playing in the front yard, her laughter carrying on the warm summer breeze. Peter waves from the porch, his smile so full of love and trust that it breaks my heart. In that moment, I make a decision. I won't tell them. Not yet. I'll go through the biopsy alone, carry this burden myself until I know for sure. It's not fair to them, I know, but the thought of watching the light fade from their eyes is more than I can bear. Mommy's home! Jackie shrieks, running towards me with open arms. I scoop her up, holding her close and breathing in the sweet scent of her hair. Peter joins us, wrapping us both in a warm embrace. Everything okay? He murmurs into my ear. I force a smile, burying my face in Jackie's curls to hide the tears that threaten to fall. Everything's perfect, I lie, my voice barely above a whisper. And as we stand there, a picture-perfect family, in the fading afternoon light, I silently pray that my deception won't be the thing that finally tears us apart. The soft glow of candlelight danced across Peter's face as he raised his glass. To 5 wonderful years, he said, his eyes shining with love, and to many more. I clinked my glass against his, forcing a smile. The weight of my secret pressed down on me, threatening to shatter this perfect moment. It had been 2 weeks since my appointment, and the biopsy results were due any day now. Every ring of my phone sent my heart racing. You okay, Em? Peter asked, his brow furrowing with concern. You seem distracted. I opened my mouth to confess everything, but the words caught in my throat. I'm fine, I lied, hating myself for it. Just thinking about how lucky we are. Peter reached across the table, taking my hand in his. We are lucky. You, me, Jackie. We're a team, remember? Nothing can break us apart. His words, meant to comfort, only twisted the knife of guilt deeper. I was about to respond when a familiar voice cut through the restaurant's ambient noise. Emma, is that you? I froze, my blood turning to ice. Slowly, I turned to face a ghost from my past. Alex. He stood there, looking older but still handsome, a mix of surprise and something else, regret, on his face. Alex, I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. What are you doing here? He gestured vaguely. Business dinner. I didn't expect to see you. Peter's hand tightened around mine, a silent show of support. Alex, he said, his voice cool but polite. It's been a long time. Alex nodded, his eyes darting between us. Then his gaze landed on something behind me, and his expression changed. Is that... I turned to see Jackie approaching our table, her face lighting up as she saw us. Mommy, Daddy, I finished my homework. Can I have dessert now? The color drained from Alex's face. She's yours? He asked, his voice strangled. In that moment I saw the wheels turning in his head, the mental math he was doing, and I realized with horror what he must be thinking. Alex, it's not. I started, but he cut me off. How could you keep this from me? He demanded, his voice rising. All these years, and you never told me I had a daughter? The restaurant fell silent, all eyes turning to our table. Jackie looked between us, confusion and fear clouding her young face. Mommy? Who's that man? Peter stood up, placing himself between Alex and Jackie. I think you need to leave, he said firmly. But Alex wasn't listening. His eyes were locked on Jackie, a storm of emotions playing across his face. She has my eyes, he whispered. No, Alex. You don't understand, I pleaded, but it was too late. He pushed past Peter, reaching for Jackie. Come here, sweetheart. I'm your real father. Jackie screamed, shrinking back. Peter grabbed Alex's arm, his face thunderous. That's enough. The restaurant erupted into chaos. Patrons gasped and murmured, waiters rushed towards us, and through it all, Jackie's sobs pierced my heart. I stood there, paralyzed by the nightmare unfolding before me. This was my fault, my lies, my secrets. They had led to this moment. As security guards appeared, pulling Alex away, his words echoed through the restaurant. She's my daughter. Emma, how could you do this to me? I watched as they dragged him out, his accusations ringing in my ears. Peter held a trembling Jackie, whispering soothing words. And me? I stood there, the weight of my deceptions crushing me. In that moment, as the world seemed to crumble around me, my phone buzzed. With shaking hands, I pulled it out to see a message from Dr. Patel. Emma, we have your results. Please call us as soon as possible. I stared at the screen, a hysterical laugh bubbling up in my throat. Of course, this would happen now when everything was falling apart. As Peter turned to me, his eyes filled with questions and hurt, I realized I had reached a crossroads. No more lies, no more secrets. It was time to face the truth, no matter the cost. Taking a deep breath, I prepared to shatter the life we had built, praying that somehow we'd find a way to pick up the pieces. The restaurant was in chaos. Jackie's sobs pierced the air as Peter held her close, shielding her from Alex's wild-eyed gaze. I stood frozen, my phone clutched in my hand, Dr. Patel's message burning into my vision. Emma! Alex's voice cut through the din. You can't keep my daughter from me. Peter's face hardened. She's not your daughter, Alex. Leave, now. But Alex wasn't listening. He lunged forward, reaching for Jackie. Peter stepped back, but Alex's fingers grazed Jackie's arm. She screamed, a sound that shattered my paralysis. Don't touch her, I shouted, stepping between them. Suddenly a large figure appeared beside us. Is there a problem here? A deep voice rumbled. I turned to see a muscular man in his mid-40s, his eyes sharp and assessing the situation. Recognition flashed across Peter's face. Richard? Peter said, relief evident in his voice. Thank God. This man is harassing my family. Richard's jaw set as he turned to Alex. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step back. Alex's face contorted with rage. You don't understand. That's my daughter. Before anyone could react, Alex shoved past Richard, making another grab for Jackie. In a blur of motion, Richard caught Alex's arm, twisting it behind his back. That's enough, Richard growled. You're coming with me. As Richard began to lead Alex away, I saw a dangerous glint in my ex-husband's eye. Time seemed to slow as Alex wrenched free, his hand disappearing into his jacket. Alex, I started, but it was too late. The glint of metal made my heart stop. A knife! Where had he gotten a knife? Jackie, I screamed, lunging forward. Everything happened in a fraction of a second. Richard tackled Alex to the ground, the knife clattering across the floor. Peter shielded Jackie with his body. And I stood there, my world tilting on its axis, as security guards swarmed in, restraining Alex. The adrenaline drained from my body. I sank to my knees, trembling uncontrollably. Emma? Peter's voice sounded far away. Emma, are you okay? I looked up at him, at Jackie's tear-stained face, and something inside me broke. The weight of my lies, the fear of my diagnosis, the shock of Alex's actions, it all came crashing down. I'm sorry, I sobbed. I'm so sorry. I've ruined everything. Peter knelt beside me, confusion etched on his face. Emma, what are you talking about? I took a shaky breath, knowing that the next words out of my mouth would change everything. The tumor, it's back, and I didn't tell you. The color drained from Peter's face. What? I was scared. I whispered. I didn't want to hurt you and Jackie. I thought I could handle it alone. Peter's expression cycled through shock, hurt, and finally a deep sadness that broke my heart. Emma, we're a team. You should have told me. As the police arrived to take statements, the gravity of the situation settled over us. Alex was being led away in handcuffs, shouting about paternity tests and lawyers. Richard stood nearby, giving his account to an officer. And we sat there on the floor, our perfect life in shambles. My phone buzzed again. Dr. Patel, no doubt wondering why I hadn't called back. The future I'd been avoiding loomed before me. More tests, more treatments, more uncertainty. What do we do now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Peter took a deep breath, squeezing Jackie's hand. We face it together, all of it. As we sat there, surrounded by the wreckage of our anniversary dinner, I realized we'd reached a turning point. The lies, the secrets, the past we thought we'd left behind, it had all caught up with us, and now we had to decide, would we let it tear us apart, or would we find the strength to rebuild? Looking into Peter's eyes, I saw a flicker of the love that had brought us together, and in that moment, I made a silent vow. No more secrets, no more lies. Whatever came next, we'd face it as a family. But as the police approached to take our statements, I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The sterile walls of the police station seemed to close in on me as I sat across from Alex, his hands cuffed to the table. Peter stood in the corner, his presence a silent pillar of strength. "Why, Alex?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why did you do this?" Alex's eyes, once so familiar, now seemed like those of a stranger. "You took my child from me, Emma. What did you expect?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. "Jackie isn't your daughter, Alex. She never was." His face contorted in confusion, then anger. "What are you talking about? You were pregnant when we separated." "I thought I was," I admitted, but it wasn't a baby. It was a tumor. The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the wheels turning in Alex's mind, piecing together the past. So all this time he trailed off, the fight draining from his body. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you," I said softly. "But you had already left. You made it clear you didn't want children." Alex slumped in his chair, the reality of his actions crashing down on him. "I've made a terrible mistake, haven't I?" I nodded, feeling a strange mix of pity and relief. "Yes, you have." As we left the station, Peter wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "Are you okay?" he asked. I leaned into him, drawing strength from his presence. "I will be. We have bigger battles to face now." The next few weeks passed in a blur of hospital visits and legal meetings. Alex's actions had consequences. He was facing charges for assault and endangering a minor. But as I sat in Dr. Patel's office, waiting for my latest test results, those problems seemed distant. "The tumor has shrunk significantly," Dr. Patel said, a smile breaking across her face. "The treatment is working, Emma." Tears of relief sprang to my eyes as Peter squeezed my hand. "So, what's next?" he asked. "We continue the treatment," Dr. Patel replied. "But I'm optimistic. You're a fighter, Emma." As we left the hospital, I felt lighter than I had in months. The sun seemed brighter, the air fresher. We picked up Jackie from school, her face lighting up as she saw us. "Mommy, Daddy, can we get ice cream?" Peter laughed, scooping her up. "I think we can manage that, Princess." Sitting in the ice cream parlor, watching Peter and Jackie giggle over their sundaes, I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. We had been through so much, divorce, cancer, Alex's attack, but here we were, still standing, still a family. "Penny for your thoughts?" Peter asked, noticing my contemplative mood. I smiled, reaching out to take his hand. "I was just thinking about how lucky I am, how lucky we all are." Peter's eyes softened. "We've been through a lot, Em, but we're stronger for it." Jackie looked up from her ice cream, her face serious. "Are you sick again, Mommy?" I pulled her into a hug, marveling at her perceptiveness. "I am, sweetheart, but the doctors are helping me get better, and I have you and Daddy to help me too." "We're a team," Jackie said solemnly, echoing Peter's words from that fateful night at the restaurant. "That's right," Peter agreed, "and teams stick together, no matter what." As we left the ice cream parlor, hand in hand, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still treatments to endure, legal battles to face, and emotional scars to heal. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. We had weathered the storm together, emerging stronger and more united than ever. Alex was a chapter of my life that had finally closed, and while the pain of those years would always be a part of me, it no longer defined me. Looking at Peter and Jackie, I saw my future, bright, full of love, and brimming with possibilities. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we would face them as we'd faced everything else, together. As we walked home in the fading sunlight, I silently thanked the twists of fate that had brought me here. To this moment, to this family, to this love. And for the first time in years, I felt truly, completely whole.